Hey everybody, it's podcast time. Sam's in the room to me. Apparently I've just decided I'm just going to keep bringing in special guests as long as they're willing. So I got a special guest. We'll talk about who that is here in a second. We're almost in agreement at gmail.com. Find us on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. Go to the website, almostagreement.com. While you're there, check out what's there, because I haven't built a new thing for these city elections coming up. But there will be an election guide 23 for these 6 city races that we're looking forward to. Some of the field is starting to come together, but as we mentioned last week, we've got till May before it gets real serious on who's who and where's where. And then we have a late summer primary and then the November general in the stupid weird way that city does their primary general combo, which I'll complain about that a lot from now until then. Almostagreement.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Go to your favorite podcast provider. Give us a like, share, follow there, whatever that thing is that you can do with that. Tell your friends about us. And I don't know, hit me up with some emails and stuff. Tell me what we're missing, because I know there's a bunch of stuff, especially in state session, that's coming up that I can't focus on all of them. So I'm sure I'm missing a few. So if you know of anything, let me know, and we'll see what we can find out. Try to get Briggs in here to talk about weed, but, among other things. So anyway, podcast time. So my secret special guest is Randy Pace, everybody. Hi, Randy.
Hi, how are you?
Great, buddy. It's good to see you.
Secret. Secret special. I'm secret and I'm special.
You're special because you're not here, not special because of anything. It's not a derogatory term.
Oh, okay. I was thinking because I rode the short bus.
You might. I don't know.
I didn't.
You're special either way.
I didn't ride the bus.
With or without the bus, you're special, sir. So, and Sam's here as per usual. What's up, Sam? How you been?
Hey.
Hi. How you been?
Been okay.
Okay. Just asking.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I don't have anything. I sent a few ideas of stuff to talk about between yous. But as we were getting set up, and Randy shared a little bit of a personal story, which brought a question up, because I think one of the first things we're getting into reorganization time for you guys, for the Republican Party. Actually, let me back up. When's the last time we had you? It's been a year?
No, I don't think it's been that long. I was here middle of last year at some point. Yeah. It was just you and I.
Okay. It's been a while.
Yeah, it has been. Maybe 8-9 months.
So, context and why it makes sense to have you on this show. Just tell the people who you are for me.
Randy Pace, immediate past chair, Knox County Republican Party. I still serve as a executive committee member for the county, and that's
right. And so immediate past chair title will fall off. Because
actually, we're going to talk about that too.
Because this procedure stuff that's weird. It doesn't fall off. You're always past chair.
Under normal conditions, it would. So the current chairman, Daniel Herrera,
has announced he's
not running again. Under normal conditions, he would serve in the role of immediate past chair. Attorney extraordinaire. His legal business is just on fire. He's doing a lot of work. He expressed some interest in applying and serving as a Knox County magistrate. And should he land a role on that body, he would be precluded from serving in any political capacity. So he approached me, and we talked about it, and then went to the executive board and said, hey, these are Daniel's plans. How do you feel about Randy continuing to serve as the immediate past chair? And one of the reasons you have somebody fill that role is corporate knowledge. You don't want to throw everything out and start anew.
So whomever takes the chair has somebody to go, hey, this is a new job for me. Help me understand what I'm missing or whatever. So we caucused. We had that meeting. We made that decision, and I'll continue to serve. Now, to your point, we're getting ready to do reorg, so we're going to have essentially a new governing body for the county party. Right. And so the question for me then is, if you take the chair back, can you hold both titles as current chair and immediate past chair?
No, I wouldn't do that. So to answer your question,
immediate past chair.
No. Let's be clear. To answer your question vis-a-vis my personal story, I have no intention of seeking the chairmanship again at this time. 5 years from now or 6, whatever the case might be. It happens every 2 years. No, I'm not going to be the chairman again.
Okay, just for the record, I didn't ask that question. I just strongly alluded to it.
Well, let's put it to bed right now.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, I was going to get there if
he knew that was coming.
Hey, before we get too deep in the weeds,
I'm just saying,
I love your startup music, but I told you before I married the smartest woman on the planet. She held a meeting the other day, and she brought on board to her company some new business interests, and they had a meeting, and so this was her startup music for that meeting.
Careful, buddy! I got copyright issues at play here.
Oh no, we're good. Okay. We're good in that. All right, so let's see if it'll play. It's an old '70s song. I think it's awesome. Is it playing? Oh,
yep.
There went the sound. Give us old guys technology and we just muck it up. Seriously, come on. Volume. I think it's so groovy now. Everybody's getting together. So you remember that song? No, you don't remember. Anyway, it was a great song, and we're all getting together. People are getting together again.
Yeah, and it's
COVID's
good.
Over. People are waking up.
Biden has pre-announced that he plans to announce that it's over in May.
Who?
Biden said that.
Who?
The president? I don't know. How do you want me to word this so that you'll accept it as a real thing?
COVID was over for me before it started. Anyway, moving on.
No, that's it. That's all I wanted. The entire show was just to see if you're going to seek your chair position back here.
So you're never going to ask me back again because I'm not going to run for chair? Is that
well,
how
no,
because
you still hold title, so your title's still useful. I'll lean on you to get the new chair to come on the show at some point.
Whoever that may be,
because I know Kyle was considering it, and then he backed out, which I was interested. I was curious why Kyle decided he wanted to in the first place, because I think...
if I had the actual inside dope on that, me, I'd tell you. But I talked with Kyle about it, and he was all in when he first approached me and told me he was going to run. And then when he made the decision not to, again, I'm not violating any secrets or trust or anything like that. I think it was more a matter of he made another assessment of where he's at in his life. He's not going to run for county commissioner again.
Right.
He's got a family. He's got a great business. He's got many business interests. It's more than I think he was willing to take on. I think Kyle could have done a lot for the Knox County Republican Party. But at the same time, I think the amount of effort it's going to take to get the Knox County Republican Party to continue to grow in a meaningful way is going to take more than he was going to be able to dedicate personally day to day.
Right. I mean, yeah, because he had a kid and some other stuff going on.
Just had a kid.
Fuck. Yeah, so I don't know, and so that's when is it? May?
No, February 18th.
Oh, February 18th. Oh, that's right. The Democrats are the ones that do it really late.
Oh, they're doing one in May?
I mean, I remember 2 years ago. Was it 2 years ago? When was the last time you guys reorganized?
2 years. 2 years ago? 2 years.
Yeah, because 2 years ago, I remember I had you and Matt in here.
Yeah.
When you were still technically the chair. I remember the entire conversation once to turn the mic off was you guys talking about because you were like, you're doing it that late. So I assume I assume they have one this year, but I just remember specifically, and I don't know if that was I don't know if that's a norm for them. I'm just assuming that later time that they did it that year is the same cycle for them this year. I don't know the answer to that.
I think not only were we doing the convention, but we were also talking about our annual fundraisers. We were doing ours; they weren't doing theirs, and it was all COVID related. Blah,
right.
blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. We had Bobert this year, right? Came out?
Yeah, they had Bobert.
They?
Well, so I was out of town. My mother was not doing great and have been back and forth to the land of the frost more time. And now she's in Florida, so. But what are the requirements to vote at the Democrat convention?
I don't know.
It's kind of a lead-in. That's a hot button topic for the Republicans this cycle. So.
Oh, as far as
bona fide.
Right. Well, because I've told the story a handful of times on the show, and I thought it was the funniest thing ever when I went to the reorganizing thing last year and walking up to the table. It's like, I'm just here to watch. And I got a special wristband, and you can't go past this line, or you don't get a chair, and all sorts of weird stuff. I think they had chairs for us in the back, but we were in the way back. And
yeah, you couldn't be on the convention floor.
Right. And so, but it's like, it's a glad hand event. So everybody's doing, shaking hands, talking, telling stuff, telling stories, catching up because you haven't seen anybody in a while. I didn't know anybody anyway, right. But I'm sitting in the back, and it's like, oh, there's a group of people. That's a person and a person and a person. And there's some more people over here, and like, I know that person, and I've seen that person on TV.
Factions.
And I'm back here in the back. And there's wheeling and dealings going on.
I don't know how much wheeling and dealing was going on, but yeah.
I feel like I don't remember the numbers, but I don't think it was a runaway for Daniel. I thought there was some.
Oh no, it was significant difference. 130 some odd vote difference. 500 votes cast. 137.
All right, never mind. I don't remember correctly.
Anyway, yeah, blah blah blah.
But I don't know. I just like it was an interesting experience. I'll say that at least to go to and spectate upon.
Everybody should go. We self-govern. Get involved.
I agree.
Come to convention.
I don't know. Screw the parties. But anyway. Yeah, so, okay. So I did mention a couple things that I wanted to talk about. And one of the things that we had talked about last week, a couple weeks ago, that Sam and I chatted about is this fair tax thing that the Republicans are discussing federally. And I know it's above your pay grade as a past former chair, but I feel like you probably have a little bit better understanding of what the plan would be if they get it done, as opposed to what little I've read on it and what nothing Sam's gotten all from me, I'm pretty sure. So, have you done any more on it other than what we talked about?
I tried to read up some more.
Okay.
So what'd you find?
Actually, I think last week we may try to do a little quick search of it. But I was on YouTube earlier this evening. Before I came, I was trying to find some videos on it. 90% was all four. I was trying to find kind of some even sides, but a lot of them were 10 years old. I think there was like a speech from Herman Cain, because I guess maybe he'd ran on it 10, 12 years ago. Then there was a couple from, I think it was Pritzker, that was governor of Illinois. But then I was getting confused as a flat tax versus fair tax.
Oh, yeah. So
that was from 2 or 3 years ago.
Right.
Because they were having a referendum at the time of changing the state constitution.
Right.
But I think that was for a flat tax, which I think they had, and were trying to go for a regressive tax. So I kind of got confused. But most of the videos were all for it, and I was like, I'm trying to find pros and cons. And everyone was just like, get rid of the IRS. I'm like, all right, I'm trying to find some more information on this, and it's all just opinion pieces.
So, yeah, source of information, I guess, is the best way to put it, and that's why I asked what you had
I watched
seen
a couple of their videos. I guess they've got their own YouTube channel, just fair tax.
Yeah. So and I find it disingenuous of our elected officials and both sides of the aisle, Republican, Democrat, Independent, dog party, cat party, whatever you affiliate as. We spend an awful lot of time.
I've got to interrupt there. So on in the two chambers combined, how many aren't Republicans or Democrats?
At the national level,
I'm pretty sure right now it's
3.
I think the new popular phrase is uniparty.
There's a uniparty. Well,
there's really not much difference, is there?
In a Republican or Democrat, I agree with that. But I'm just saying, of the quote 2 parties that exist, how many people are in the Senate or House in D.C. that aren't Republican or Democrat?
Yeah, it changed, and that changes routinely, but it never changes beyond 2 or 3 members out of the Senate and House combined.
Right.
So, over 500 people.
Anyway, I interrupted with that because you were talking about dog party, so I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't.
I don't think there's anybody serving. No, not at the federal level. So anyway, my brief, bright, and relevant. So much information out there has very little to do with the ultimate legislation that gets passed, and so much of it is just red meat, if you will, for an ideology rather than what serves the public's interest. I think the federal government does far more than it was ever designed to do, and because it does so much more, it believes it needs so much more of our money. We already spend more than we should, to the point where we don't have enough to pay our bills, so we borrow it or we print money. The abolishment of the IRS has been something that's been kicked around since I was a kid.
Well, because the income tax didn't go into place until 45.
So
or 18. It was post World War One.
Yeah. So early part of the 1900s, we established a method by which every individual would pay something, conceivably, theoretically.
Right, but it was established to pay off war debt.
Yeah, more or less.
Okay.
It was established to pay off war debt, but it was also established to fund the functions of government, which were expanding by leaps and bounds.
Right.
So anyway, long story short,
in a quick review of the U.S. House of Representatives, there is the Virginia 4th District is the only one that does not have a D or an R next to it because that is a vacant seat currently.
There you go. Last session, I think we just had a Democrat flip, didn't we?
Senate.
Yeah,
in the Senate.
Yeah, in the Senate.
Sinema left the party.
Yeah. All right. So anyway, when you use the term fair tax, I think it's a misnomer. There's nothing fair about taxes, particularly when the people that are responsible for the public trust are overspending. So it's not fair. So if we're going to do something, before we start messing with the tax code, and believe me, much of it needs to be scrapped. It's beyond what was ever intended. Let's focus on cutting and gutting all the unnecessary spending, then find out where we're at, so that we know how much tax we actually need to collect. That's not a D or R thing. That's an American people thing, and I think many people in the public recognize that, and because they recognize that, they're gravitating to the person that's willing to say that. And I think people on both sides of the aisle are willing to say that, and saying, well, if you pass their plan, it's going to hurt us all. And the other side says the same thing. So when I hear the term fair tax, I think the IRS is out of control. So Lois Lerner lives up in Canada now. A close personal friend of mine was sitting behind Lois Lerner at the famous hearing before Congress, and he was furious because his nonprofit did not get approved, and simply because his nonprofit was designed to gather together everybody for the purpose of limiting government spending, and because it was viewed as a conservative movement, he was flat out told by one IRS agent that you're not getting approved because you're a conservative organization, and that's not nonprofit. So anyway, but the IRS needs to be throttled. Is it a fair tax? No, I don't think it's a fair tax. I think it's a review of the tax code by implementing some legislation, whether you call it the fair, because they got to call it something.
Right.
The economic recovery wasn't economic recovery. It was a way to spend another $1 trillion.
It's like the Small Businesses and Family Act.
Yeah. So
the House passed it a week and a half, 2 weeks ago.
So again, I think that the final legislation that you end up with, because one house can pass it and the other one not, and then we kick it around for another couple of years. It happens all the time. So what we end up with is what the public will tolerate, or what they believe we will tolerate. What needs to happen is we need to say, we're not going to tolerate any of it anymore. Stop. Just stop. We don't need more legislation. We need less. We need less spending. We need to focus on what our needs actually are, which kind of segues into one of the other points that you sent to me about certificate of need in the state of Tennessee.
Right.
How the state government ever got involved in that process, I just
right.
I can't.
And we'll get to that one in a second. So, in further research, the Senate has 3: Angus King Jr. from Maine, now Kristen Sinema and the Bernie Sanders. I forgot he is a independent as a senator.
Socialist. Independent socialist?
Well, because socialist is not a recognized party by
Nutbag?
By the state of Vermont, I guess. So he has to run as an independent.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think because when you're talking about that, I was thinking about what they is now as the Knox County Republican Party. That's a nonprofit organization, right?
A not-for-profit organization.
Okay, because that's one that's I thought it was just I thought that was a misnomer. I thought that was the same thing that people just use the terms interchangeably.
We're a PAC, part of a PAC. We roll up to the state and national RNC. We're a political action committee, just like every other political organization.
Right, but you don't pay.
But because we're recognized in state law, every state writes its own election laws. They write parties rules and laws that govern political parties.
But I pay what I can't remember what it's called now. In the state of Tennessee, you have damn it, it's going to drive me nuts because it's a $500 tax a year just for existing as a business. Does the Republican Party pay that?
There is a fee that was collected by the Secretary of State, and there was some question last year about who was paying it, how much they were paying, and why they weren't. So, yeah, they pay a fee.
The Tennessee State Republican Party,
yes,
has a fee.
Yeah,
and the Knox County
Republican Party was told to pay a fee, and while we stroked the check and then it came back out, they said, "Hey, we've got to make some adjustments to our rules, and we have to we got to take another look at the state law. We're not sure we can charge every county party and every affiliated organization with the Republican Party the same fee because it's already being paid under
the parent company, for lack of a better word."
Yeah.
Huh. I'm confused again.
Don't be confused.
I am.
Why?
Because what's the difference in a not-for-profit and a non-profit?
I hear a funny story. I tried my intro to social work. I tried to ask my teacher that, but she couldn't tell me.
All right, so like I said, we're a PAC. We don't.
All right, so I'll ask the question this way. So as a former chair, you probably know this. When you hold an event,
yes,
right, and
we don't pay taxes.
So like when you go, so you hold an
we
event.
We have an EIN just like everybody else,
right? But
we have filing requirements with the IRS just like everybody else.
But when you hold an event. And you go to Sam's Club and buy some chafing dishes and some barbecue mini weenies and some quiche and some whatever else you want to do for your little buffet at your event. Do you pay sales tax?
All right. So if you are,
you pay sales tax on the chafing dishes either way.
If the party is paying for it and you present your EIN that makes you tax exempt, you don't pay sales tax. But if somebody goes out and buys something on behalf of the party and then submits, a receipt for reimbursement because they were told to go and buy it and they paid sales tax, guess what? The sales tax gets paid.
Right.
No harm, no foul. Are political parties exempt from sales tax if they follow all the rules? And oddly enough, there are organizations out there that don't have a complete and full understanding of how the parties work, how they operate. There's
two people in this room that don't even begin to understand, and I'll argue that there's one other person in this room that doesn't fully understand it either.
Oh, I understand it completely. we don't because we file tax returns just like everybody else, the ones necessary. We don't pay taxes. No, we're a not-for-profit organization. We're tax exempt. Under the IRS rules governing political action committees, political parties,
right?
Political activity.
But that's one of the things that I did.
Candidates don't pay taxes. If you establish a campaign fund,
right, and you hold a fundraising event, you go to your Sam's Club, buy your cocktail weenies and whatnot.
If you set up the proper EIN, you're not paying taxes.
Right.
You're not for profit, right, for political purposes.
What I always find interesting in that, that's what my assumption was anyway.
Yeah.
Because one of the complaints though is some people are not fans of churches being tax exempt or whatever.
Right.
And one of the arguments is often it's like, well, as long as they're not political, it should be okay. But it's like that's like I don't. To me, I like.
Why is the party getting tax exempt status?
Okay, please.
Is that your?
I don't know.
That's what you're pondering.
Sort of, I guess. Why does anybody get tax exempt status?
Oh man, why do schools get tax exempt status?
I mean, that's where if we're gonna have this thing in place,
any government entity really is tax exempt. They're the tax collector.
It's true. We wanted. Oh God. I learned today that from old law still sitting around, railroads still have right of way and eminent domain. They could still claim eminent domain on expansions. Like, so if Norfolk Southern out here wanted to build a spur that came over this way, they could make me sell my house.
In the simplest terms, yeah, that's how it works. But it's a little more.
I get it, but I'm just saying, like, I didn't realize that was still a thing.
Yeah.
Well, because so
you would.
To come off the tax exempt thing, because I don't really understand it well enough to really argue about it that much.
All right. So I will tell you, I'm kind of in your camp. I think nonprofits, by and large, do a lot of good work, but I think if you're paying somebody an income, and that's the other thing. There are certain circumstances where political parties have to pay taxes, and they have to pay insurance. What's the term? Employee unemployment insurance. Yeah. So not everything is tax exempt.
Right. Anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
So
I'm with you. Everybody pay tax.
I'm just saying, like, I don't like. I could, like, because I'm not wholly against the idea of tax exempt, but I think the idea to me, or at least theoretically, is that this entity is providing a specific public good. Their intent is to provide a public good that may or may not be a profitable enterprise. So as a way to help encourage people to go after said thing, we'll make it a little bit more financially feasible by exempting their tax requirements when it's, feeding the homeless group, it's whatever. And so, and to me, a lot of churches generally fall under that because they usually have some sort of mission group kind of thing that's part of their mission statement as a church or whatever. And like, I could get behind the premise of that. And I guess to me, where it gets a little confusing is, I would argue at least that the political parties don't necessarily provide a public good. So why would they fall under the same category?
Teaching people the need to vote, for regardless of the reason, teaching people about the electoral process, the need to self-govern, I think that does public good, because heaven knows that public education isn't doing it. The government's not doing it.
I don't know if I'd agree with you to say that either party locally does it. They just play the games.
I spend a great. I'll be honest with you. Political parties were originally set up that way, and I adhered to that. I have to tell you, way too many people have bastardized too many of our systems. That's why we're in the shape that we're in. But they've only been allowed to do that because the public abdicated the responsibility of self-government.
Right. I agree with that. I 100% agree with that statement. I think we've
well, there you go.
We've allowed ourselves.
Then you agree with that the party is doing some public good, or attempting to do some public good. Perhaps not 100% of them, but believe me, there's a sufficient number of people that believe the same thing you and I do, and the things that you and I don't agree on, we're not bashing each other's brains in over it.
Right.
You and I have
Well, I think that's the general. I think that's what's generally lost in discourse across the board, is that we don't like. I can't remember what we were talking about. It's like, I don't agree with person X's politics, but they're fun to hang out with. Actually, no, I think I was talking about you to somebody else.
Oh, jeez.
I was like, I think it was after we'd scheduled, and I mentioned to somebody that you were coming in, and I was like, I don't agree.
Why is he coming?
No, it wasn't even like that. It was like, who is he? It's like, oh, he's a former chair, blah, blah, blah. It's like, I don't agree with like the majority of like some of the politics arguments and stuff like that I'll have with Randy, but he's fun to talk to. He's fun to talk to. He's interesting. He knows a lot of shit that I don't know, and there's not a better way to learn it. And so,
I think I taste the butter.
The French toast?
I didn't taste too much French toast. I mean, it had a little bit of like carbiness to it, but didn't really taste the cinnamon or nutmeg.
Is there a maple-y or anything going on?
Not that I recall. Yeah, I mean, it was pretty smooth.
We all taste something different.
I haven't had it yet, so I don't know.
Frame of reference.
Everybody's got different taste buds.
But so another one that I learned today is University of Tennessee. It's a state. It's basically part of the state government anyway. They fall into the same thing. And this is one of the things to me on the local, like getting a local conversation and all the crazy shit that we got going on locally. That really makes me sad, because one of the things to me that since I was in high school, I was kind of hated on UT, and then I went there and I still kind of hated on it. But like, to me, Knoxville is getting to the point where it's not a college town anymore. You know, we're not like a Madison, Wisconsin. You know, like where the biggest thing.
This big old UT football picture on your wall.
Sure, but you know, you could I always put it this way: if you go to Atlanta, it's not Georgia Tech, it's Atlanta, and Georgia Tech is there.
Right.
You know, and so
Knoxville's good. Yeah,
I think Knoxville
used to exist because of UT. Yeah,
I won't say
Knoxville was here. Well, probably about St. UT's been around forever.
Well, I mean, UT started before Tennessee was a state. It's technically started as University of North Carolina. I'm sorry, the Blunt College that was originally UT was before Tennessee was a state. But anyway, as far as this crazy growth that we've seen here locally over the last couple of years, especially when the pandemic hit and all that kind of shit, and I think Tennessee at large is like the number 2 state of incoming.
I think that number dropped to like 5 or something.
Okay, it's still up there.
We were number 1, then we were number 2.
Right, but Nashville's still like top 15 on the list of cities. Tennessee or Knoxville is like top 25 on the list of cities that people are moving to and stuff like that. And going back to the eminent domain part of things is that UT has their big circle that's around their big circle. So the University of Tennessee, where it actually is, that is state property because it's University of Tennessee. And they have we talked about this last week. There's the trustees or whatever at the university get to draw a circle. It's wherever they want to, basically in Knoxville, on where they would like to expand the campus to. And if a piece of property comes up and they want to buy it and it's not in their circle, they're not allowed to. But if it's in that circle, they can buy it. And then I add on to that what I learned today is that, well, if they want to buy it, they can buy it. It's not a conversation necessarily. Yes, there is process, and it's not like they can just go kick you out of your house, but they can get after you. And when push comes to shove, if UT wants your piece of land, they will take it because they can. And so it's like one of the things to me that I'm waiting for is for Knoxville and Knox County at large. And I think this goes back to my metro thing too, is that to get to a metro where we have the totality of the population instead of just the city population against the university in conversation like this, is UT will always hold more power than they should in this locally because they can.
Why do they get so many more votes?
Do it.
All right, so I think the last number I had I saw Chris Davis this morning with the Motley Crew. I'm going to plug Motley Crew. Have you ever met Hubert Smith? Didn't I invite you to Motley Crew?
You invited me, and
you need to come at some point.
I currently still have a day job, and
I get that.
And it's a lunch thing on Friday. On a Friday,
yes. So
I
get it.
It competes both with my day job and with my other job that I do on early Friday afternoons as well.
One day,
I'll figure out a time to make it a thing, and I would like to come because it does seem to be. I mean, it's a little
100 people there today.
Yeah, it does seem to be
all walks of life. Yeah. So I ran into Chris Davis there, and Knox County Election Commission administrator. He's not the appointed guy. He's the hired guy that runs it.
Right.
So
he's going to be mad at me. This is the first Chris Davis mentioned in probably 2 months. Actually, I'll have to go back and count. He was my most reoccurring guest. You might actually surpass that today. I haven't counted. This is 4 or 5? Anyway,
I don't know. It doesn't matter. So anyway, we've had many conversations about population growth in Knox County and city of Knoxville, et cetera, et cetera. So we're not done. We're not done. They just approved another 360 houses North Knox somewhere. But Knoxville's growing, and
I mean, that's not even counting that whole Belltown thing. It's 1,000+ units, which is going to be like 3,000 or 4,000 people once it's all said and done.
So when the Northeast Corridor has to find another place to live because they've ruined it, they've taxed themselves out of any kind of reasonable living, they got to have someplace to go. And, Tennessee doesn't have an income tax. You want to go to Tennessee, you want to go to Knoxville because we have UT, because we have a workforce that can support a business that needs, that level of intellect. But at the same time, for a guy like me, when you got, a lead professor in the law department at UT, telling his students that, the government should borrow more money and pay more and, tax more, I'm like, there are way too many people that speak with authority that have no authority. UT speaks with a unified voice of all its alumni, all the money they bring in, all the money they throw around, and all the money that is made off of connections with UT. I'll give you an example. One of the big things UT is, and it is a state school, let's be honest, the public funds this school. 100%? No, of course not. Football brings in a lot of money, but it doesn't go back to the public.
Right.
It just does. Oh, well, it's economic development. No, it doesn't go back to the public. If you're making that kind of money, pay your own bills. So housing's an issue because people are coming to UT to go to school. There's not enough housing. There's not enough affordable housing. But UT, in their infinite wisdom, is tearing down old housing and putting up another business school. And now I'll give you 3 guesses who's moving on. My point is, I agree with you when it comes to the undue influence that certain entities impose on the public.
Right, I'm so exhausted.
The public has to fix this.
I agree, but I'm so exhausted with it's the Marriott building now that there's some developers coming in and he's going to build student housing there and he's looking for TIFs and pilots to help him do whatever project he's going to do in there for more student housing. And it's like, okay, I get it. And Boyd has made it a point that he wants to keep enrollment up, and where I guess the class that starts next year, so the fall of 23 class, as of right now, has already been cut off. As far as freshmen applying to come to UT Knoxville, they've cut it off. The wait list is like 300 or 400 or 500 kids deep, and this is as of like a week ago when I was reading this story on it or whatever. And they still, but there's kids want to come here, which is great. And
it's not unique to just UT,
right?
It's happening throughout the country.
But I guess where I'm getting stuck on this whole thing is that's great. Good job, UT. Get all these students. You figure out where to house them. Don't put that burden on us, especially if the city or the county is going to give a pilot or TIP program to a developer to build housing specifically targeted for your students. It's your students. It's your problem. If you're going to sell tickets to the show, you need to have a seat to put somebody.
Well, they're going to fix it. They're going to build a footbridge across the river,
right? Which they're going to get. They're going to go over there, and they're already breaking what the South Riverfront plan was.
The public's
going
to pay for that. You understand?
I know, and again, that is a perfectly good specific that I have issues with. Like, it's like,
so do I.
UT can afford it if they want to do that to make it easier for. And more attractive for a developer to build more housing.
But their point is it's an economic engine for Knoxville. Well, my point is that economic engine is sufficient enough to pay for itself.
Right, because that's the same.
And if it's not, it's not a burden that I'm willing to bear. You've got to give me better empirical evidence than you've already given me,
right. Other
than to say, well, we bring in billions of dollars to the economy. Time out.
How much do you cost it?
Well, you can bring billions of dollars into the economy. If you're bringing in that much, why are you coming to me to pay taxes? If you're doing so much good for the community and you're helping it, why am I continuing to pay
right.
taxes?
It's the same argument, and I know you're on the same page with this, so it's the same argument against the stadium project. It's like, if it's that good and it's that easy and it's going to be that profitable, then fucking do it. What are we waiting on? Why are the rest of us pitching? And I believed for consistency, I was on that from the beginning. I've always been opposed to the state to taxes funding any of the stadium project, and I'm opposed to taxes funding anything that the university does in expansion. If they want to expand outside their footprint, they need to pay for that and reduce the tax burden.
I think it's a good idea that UT expands because, but I would argue today that I think UT's expansion should be into trade schools and people that are not seeking a bachelor's degree in basket weaving or the arts or, law degrees that argue that, the U.S. is racist and you need to pay reparations. I think that if the average age of a plumber in Knoxville is 60, why are we not looking to train students that are never going to have a law degree? Why aren't we training them to be plumbers? Why don't you use some of that largesse that you're getting out of your wonderful... And believe me, I think I've been a Tennessee Vol fans all my life. Since I was a toddler, I wore orange. I love Tennessee football. I love UT. But, if you want to serve your community, a little less on what you call economic development, let's put it into something that truly is going to help everybody. And not just a few. And they can argue, well, we do so much more and so many... Stop.
Well, the question...
not helping me.
The core question of that to me is that, this is me. I always try to turn it into a business model anyway. And I mean, to be fair, UT has a business model in what they do. Mm-hmm. What are you selling?
A great business model.
But at the end of the day, what are you selling?
Influence.
You're as... To everybody? To any student? I went to UT. I didn't get a check. I didn't get a...
I'm here.
Because I went to UT?
No, I'm kidding.
But I'm just saying, what are you selling? And it's a broader question. It's not a local question at all. This is the reality of the United States we live in today. Is I complain all the time. Is that when I was in high school, when Sam and I were in high school together, it was strongly implied, if not outright said, that you're not doing anything after high school unless you go to college.
So, Sam, where'd you go? For college?
Community college, Pellissippi.
Okay.
Rome State.
So there's you two tell me, what's the difference between what you're doing and what Sam's doing based on where you went to college? Is it substantially different? My son went to UT and then he went to MTSU. My daughter went to
but I think that's my point. And my point is what
UT Chattanooga.
What are you selling as the university to get this many kids to come and pay the obnoxiously large amount of money, or take loans to pay the money, to be a student at your place?
Because, the color orange,
right? But that's what I'm saying. Is always, but I don't understand how it's sustainable to continue selling that, and whether we're going to joke about basket weaving as a major or whatever some of the ridiculous majors that do exist.
Even in the field of medical research, UT does a tremendous amount of great work in medical research. How many people went to med school or any, whether it's the lowest nursing program, lowest, radiology program, whatever, whether you were a brain surgeon or the other, how many of those students that went to UT and got that degree, regardless what it was, what's the difference in one student's income from UT and another? How many students go to UT annually? And how many of those end up in the position that some of the other UT graduates that have been in Knoxville all their life and are giving back to UT and in a lot of respects give back to the community as a result of their success because they went to UT. It's and I hate to use this term because there's good and bad in our educational institutions. There just is. But it's a cabal. It's
I mean, I think that's kind of what I'm getting to because it'd be a good stat to figure out what is the average UT graduate making 5 years and 10 years after graduation.
That's not a stat they're going to waste money on. And when I say waste money on, their opinion is that's a waste of money. Because when you start providing that type of information, people start questioning why am I spending all that extra money
That's
to go
my point.
there?
But that's the point, is that how do they continue to sell
prestige? That's what it says on my degree. Harvard and Yale. How many arguments have you heard over your lifetime?
I would
about whose law degree is better.
But
LMU's graduates are doing better than UT's law graduates.
But I mean,
go figure.
But to me, that's the sales. I mean, I would think that would be like, as a parent, I think that would be what I'm looking for. It's like, you want to go to a school X for whatever. Well, what is the average student that graduated with that degree from that school doing 5, 10, 15 years out?
I can't remember what the publication was, but I want to say Yale or one of the major law schools just recently told that publication, leave us off the list.
Oh, a bunch of big
because
ones
they did. Yeah, they're like, I don't want to be on the list anymore.
I actually, there was a story on that on one of my podcasts. They were talking about it because one of the things that's going on in the Supreme Court right now is that they're about to drop affirmative action.
Yes. From
Supreme Court stuff. And so what they're trying to do, they want to be off. They're opting out of being on that list so that when they start taking LSAT scores or SAT scores or any of the other scoring off of their admission requirements, that because they're trying to do it for equity. This is the argument, at least at play, that when they're trying to bring kids in on equity and diversity issues instead of bringing them in on scoring issues, then they're going to be presumably bringing kids in with lower scores. And if they're not on the list, then those lower scores aren't going to show up, and that's going to drop them down that list that's produced. Does that make sense?
No, not really.
Okay, so if this is the assumption at play, and I'm not agreeing or disagreeing with this, but the assumption at play is that if you have the University of Tennessee, mostly white students, I would say it's probably more than 50% white students, right? And so if UT's goal says we want to have, a 25% white, 25% black, 25% Asian, 25% other, whatever. That's the goal that they decide to get to. The assumption at play is that to get to that, you're going to have to drop the scoring requirements on standardized tests or other things like that, your high school GPA and your standardized tests, because the assumption is that those other classes of community aren't having those scores to get in, because that's why they're not getting in now. That's the assumption. Again, I don't know that the full stat breakdown of it, but the assumption is that if you need to have what's SATs, like 1600 is a really good score. So like 1600 on SAT is a really good score. Well, if you want to get it so you have this breakdown culturally and skin tone wise and gender wise and all that kind of stuff, if you want to get that breakdown that way, you're going to have to lower those scores to get more black and Hispanic kids into your school. That's the assumption.
Okay.
Right? And so if you're going to stop using that, but the company that does these rankings is still using those, that means your average freshman has lower scores. And so you're going to drop way down that list.
Not what that publication. The publication isn't ranking who has the highest average scores in law schools of students participating in that graduate program.
Okay, maybe I'm conflating stories then, because the story that I heard on it was...
It's just the quote, like, best law schools in the U.S.
But how,
I don't think they're looking at...
Everybody thinks they're the best law school
but how do you,
in the U.S.
Okay, if you're tasked with making that list, how would you go about making that list?
I have no fucking clue what their parameters are.
That's what I'm saying. I would assume that those parameters would involve standardized test scores, number of kids that pass the bar, whatever it is, if it's a law school.
It's graduation weight, bar.
I think the bigger question, more important question, would be, how did you arrive at that decision? How did you determine you were the best? And if you had to go out and do research and gather information, who gathered the information and for what purpose?
Right.
So, and you can apply that same model to everything. All too often I hear people cite studies and research, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I gave you an example, LMU law and UT law. I based my comment on the people who pass the bar and are actually making money. You have people that get a degree from a major university and then they end up doing something entirely different. For whatever reason, personal choice, the economy doesn't support that, skill set anymore, whatever the reason. Prestige. People go to UT for prestige. The recognition. It makes a difference in Knox County, whether you got a law degree or any degree from UT. You get first preference. It's the home school. It's the home team. You play for the home team. So we're going to pick you first. When, what you were talking about, the Supreme Court and making decisions about who we're going to hire based on whether they went to Harvard, Yale, Penn, whomever. It's all a matter of prestige. You buy prestige. You buy positive press.
I think my dad said it best.
Buy research.
It's one of the things, like of the plethora of random things that my dad has said, is like advice things or whatever. It's like you finish school because all they care about is that piece of paper. That's really what it's about. You go there to get the piece of paper. It's not going there to get an education. You go there to get the piece of paper because the piece of paper does exactly what you're talking about. Because I can put that on my resume, and I can produce the piece of paper to prove that part of my resume is true. It's not necessarily about what I learned in school. It's that I finished. That was always my dad's take.
That's my wife's take.
Yeah.
And both my kids graduated. They have their degree and are actively pursuing careers, in the field that they got their degree.
So that was my problem, though. Is like I didn't know. I still don't know what I'm doing.
I never told either one of them you had to do X. I would have loved to seen both my children get law degrees, and they're both going to go and seek their masters. But
my dad tried to get me to enlist. That would have been.
I was more concerned about the content of their character than I was their academic prowess.
Yeah.
I think we spend a great deal of time in this country trying to convince people that your measure of success is how far you went in school. Your measure of success is your desire to improve yourself and those around you. That's my opinion. I have seen people get degrees and be very successful. I've seen people get degrees and
start hosting podcasts, hanging out in their basement with random people on a Friday night.
I think you're very successful. Honestly,
I'm happy with my life. I'm not mad about it. I like to make fun of myself for it, but
don't make fun of yourself. I got nothing but respect for you, brother.
I didn't need UT to do anything that I'm doing right now. But I got it.
You ask some very pointed, tough questions. You have some thoughts and ideas that you have. The first time I came here, I was like, this guy's a loose cannon. Now I look forward to coming here because I'm still a loose cannon. I know what I'm doing. Well, yeah, but you're asking questions and learning more and more about what it is you're doing.
But I think that's what I think that fits uniquely well with you because you actually like that part too. Because I think that's right.
So what's the difference between you and Joe Rogan? Joe Rogan runs a podcast.
$100 million Spotify check. I'm not that into cage fighting.
But
I'm kind of funny. Am I kind of funny?
Sometimes.
All right. So a law degree from one place or another, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. You said it yourself. You're happy with your life.
Right. I agree. But I and again, I think that's.
How old are you?
41.
You got a long way to go, brother. So do I.
I
ain't going nowhere yet.
Retirement is coming soon for me. I'm going to figure it out. Retirement's happening. I'm going to have to take a loan out or something. We're never going to finish this other store. It's driving me crazy.
Oh, jeez. Come on. Moving on.
I don't remember what else is going on. There was something else in the city stuff that I wanted to...
Oh, city elections. ABC 5 mayor.
Yeah, that's
ABC.
Right. All three.
ABC
is the at-large, so it's all
the at-large and District 5.
Right, just to be confusing, the city does...
I was like, what are you talking
about? The city does...
Just to be confusing.
I mean, I feel like it's the truth.
Wait, everybody writes their own election laws, and the city of Knoxville was allowed by the state legislature to write some laws that just don't make sense.
I'm just saying, like, commission goes, there's 1 through 9...
1 through 9, 2 at large.
Right, and so, but it's 10 and 11 are at large, where the city's 1 through 7. No, 1 through 6.
1 through 6,
and then
3 at large.
3 at large, And I did notice, too, it's city goes clockwise, county goes counterclockwise. One or the same?
Well, you don't want to turn them all over in one fell swoop.
No, I just mean, like,
I did that one time. It was a lot of fun.
Like 200 yards that way is the city line, right? If I was 200 yards that way, I'd be city council district 2, but I'm county 4.
Well, I told you my property line abuts the city, and I live farther west than you.
Well, I mean, that's the fence line in the back is the city for me.
I know.
But I just think it's District 3 is the only one that overlaps. 1 and 3 overlap strongly in both city and county. But outside of that, they're all like
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so we got the 3 at-larges, District 5, mayor, and a judge that, at least from what I'm hearing,
John Rosen. I saw him today too.
He's probably not. I mean, nobody's going to run against him.
No.
Yeah, there was a local judge. I'm not sure what he was before, but just got appointed to the Tennessee Supreme Court by Lee.
So, yeah, Haslam's old attorney.
Yeah, I did read that. Yeah, it was his former in-house counsel or something.
Huh. Wonder how they knew each other.
Who?
Surprise, surprise, surprise.
How Governor Lee knew him? He made the appointment.
Yeah. That's what I'm
How
saying.
did Haslam know his attorney?
No, how did Governor Lee know Haslam's attorney?
Oh, yeah. Probably.
Probably through Haslam, probably. Just a guess.
Yeah, that would. I mean, the guy's qualified.
I'm not saying he is or isn't. I'm just saying that's the. I don't know how. Anyway, judges. The whole judge subset of elections gets really weird for me. Anyway, but I don't know. Like I as of right now, I've seen 4 mayoral candidates already filing paperwork.
Really?
Yeah.
4?
Yeah.
Wow.
So obviously, Kincannon's filing for already filed for re-election.
What when you say file? What did they file? They picked up a petition.
Yeah, I guess they picked up the petition. I don't think they've turned them in yet.
Petitions aren't out yet, so they appointed a treasurer.
That's probably
that's
probably the accurate one. Yeah.
Okay.
Let me see. I where's my reference? Who did I see it on?
Process. Yeah, I know. Just
They got the wheels turning.
Let me look it up.
So You said 4, and I acted kind of surprised, and I'm not necessarily. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people say, "Yeah, I'm running for mayor." Yeah,
there you
petition return deadline, and then the withdrawal deadline. That's who's running for mayor.
I know, and that's what sucks. Well, that's what sucks about me trying to figure out who to talk to, because I've had at least one interview of somebody who had pulled and turned in petition, but then rescinded their petition before the deadline. And so it's like, well,
all the time.
You were fun to talk to,
all the time.
But
all the time.
I wouldn't have done it if I knew that was the plan.
I mean, people float trial balloons and this, that, and the other thing. They get in because they know they can, make somebody else squirm, whatever. But for me, for the public's interest, I think the public needs to pay closer attention to the filing deadline and the withdrawal deadline. Because that's who is running. And you don't waste your time trying to figure out who's who in the zoo. Now, candidates will tell you, oh, well, I got all this support and people are giving me money. You need to support me because nobody else is going to be a quote-unquote viable candidate. Something, anybody that meets the requirements of viable candidate, it's what they're willing to put into it. Money doesn't win elections. Votes do. We, the people, self-govern. When the people realize that we can elect who we choose, not who they tell us to choose. Yeah, what?
Tell us who to choose from.
Same thing. Same thing. I'm not telling you who to choose from. It's up to you. I'm telling you, I'm trying to lay out for everyone. It's incumbent upon all of us.
All right, so Hornbecker's reporting on it, and that's where I'd seen it.
Oh, geez. What does the illustrious Mr. Hornbeck have to say
he was just saying,
about city elections?
Kincannon had filed her financial whatever's. Constance has filed hers. Keith Lyon, I guess that's how you say that. Lyon, Lyon. Mm-hmm. Has $150. He spent $34 of it on the most recent reporting. And Kerry Williams appointed a treasurer. And so, he's just pulling the records from the election commission.
Sure. Because Brian wants to be first.
Fugate, Cameron Brooks for seat A, Testerman and Debbie Helsley seat B. Amelia Parker. He says Park in here. Tim Hill. And Matthew Best for C. Charles Thomas is
incumbent.
Yeah, he's incumbent. His report has not been filed. And then the judge one. So, yeah. Constance was fun. I had a great show with her. She was very fun to talk to.
Interesting lady.
Yep. Army vet. Got her brain scrambled real good. She talks about it. It was great. That was one of the things I got. That's not what I was expecting at all. I knew that about her. Yeah. I'd known that going into the conversation, but she brought it up and went on about it, and I was like, okay, that makes some sense. It's a terrible picture of Mayor Jacobs here.
Yeah, I was like, did they catch him dancing? What is this?
He looks like he's very confused about what that chair is doing.
That's Bob Cry behind him. That's probably why he looks like that.
Man, usually when I saw it, I'm supposed to pick this thing up and knock somebody over the back with it.
Do you want me to stack these chairs? I'm confused at what's going on. Anyway, so yeah, I don't know. Do you think I guess it'll be under the new chair's tutelage, but do you think the party is going to be as involved as they were in the last city election?
I can't imagine that the Knox County Republican Party would stay out of any election cycle. Why would they? All elections are partisan, regardless what somebody might try and convince you. All elections are partisan. You're picking one person over another. If you have two Democrats running, it's partisan. You're choosing somebody over another. That's the definition.
I don't know the specific actual Webster's definition of the word partisan, but I think the implication is not A-B. It's Republican Democrat. That is what a partisan election is. You could disagree on definitionals, but I think if you ask the average person out there, what does partisan mean? They're going to say it's a Republican Democrat. Which
is why you need people like you and me to have that conversation and I would say not to put
so Daniel last year,
point on it. We need to put a finer point on it.
But to put a legal standpoint on it from the state allowed for school board elections to become partisan.
Yep.
If the counties wanted them to be so.
And they're going to do the same thing for the city. And
so Daniel went out and filled out the paperwork to make it a partisan election. The Democrats did it as a response because they had to, and I don't blame them for whatever. It doesn't matter. But that was the definitional change of a nonpartisan school board races to a partisan school board race.
So here's the finer point on exactly what you're talking about.
Because
really, from a legal perspective,
because the legal change that actually happened was how the primary part of said election worked, or at least from a functional, maybe not a legal standpoint. From a functional standpoint, it changed how the primary worked.
We still have city primaries.
We do, but
they're kind of screwy. I don't think they don't serve the public's interest. But we have screwy primaries in the city.
I think the city general is the screwy one more than the primary is. I think the idea of a primary personally, I'm a ranked choice person. I prefer ranked choice, and we could just do away with primaries altogether. That would be fantastic.
Do you remember that conversation?
No, I don't remember that. We drink all the time.
Yeah, well, we talked about ranked choice voting. I'm not a big fan. The public's got too far to go before ranked choice voting should even be considered.
No, I don't. Let's redo this conversation because I don't remember.
The public just doesn't know enough to make ranked choice voting meaningful.
And what you're implying right now, you're implying that all the public needs to know is the RD.
No. Because if
they knew past that, they would want. Right? Well, then what does the public not know?
The public needs to understand more about the process itself and understand their role in it. What does it mean to self-govern? If you don't want your government to spend your tax dollar, the money they take from you, under the threat of imprisonment on X, you have redress.
In this room, we call it under the threat of kidnapping, but go ahead.
What? Okay. So
that's a stab at
you have recourse. Just getting people... And most people are so fed up because of the rhetoric both parties have thrown around for so long, and it's only gotten worse. You know something? Just stop. Just stop. Money doesn't win elections. Votes do. There are more of us than there are of them.
Did you really say money doesn't win elections?
That's the third time he said
Seriously.
it tonight.
Seriously.
So you could get a candidate voted
Hillary
in.
Hillary Clinton
with
out
no
on
no
a
war
rough one,
chest.
on
No
a
war
rough
chest.
one, not no war chest, but on a rough one off the top of my head, Hillary Clinton in 2016, help me out, out fundraised and spent Trump by like 2 or 3 times in 2016.
Okay.
To give you a little bit of ammunition, although I do agree with him here, is it may not win or lose, but it sure does a whole lot for the
Got a
party.
big hill to climb without the money.
I did not.
I mean, especially in this day and age. I mean, you're not getting an advertisement. You're not getting the candidate's name out there.
I did not say, and I did not mean to imply that there are unscrupulous people that will take money under the premise of, I'm going to do the public's business if I only get your money. There are people that do that. And there are people that win elections
I'm talking about just
because
like the cost
they raised the most money and they spent the most money.
Right.
Well, that's not what self-governance is all about. My vote is just as important as your vote. And because you've got $1 million and I got 3, doesn't negate or cancel out my vote. I'm living proof on a much smaller scale. I didn't run for president, but I'm living proof that no, that ain't happening.
You heard it here first, everybody.
So I'm living proof that I was outspent, $70,000 to $761, and I won.
Mm-hmm.
Explain that for me. That's a huge disparity. How did I win?
I mean, I don't know.
I'm not saying it's impossible.
Okay.
I'm saying it's a big uphill battle.
So throwing
I would say
tea
more often
into Boston Harbor and telling the king, shit, we're not doing this anymore. And let's be honest, it wasn't the majority of the American public or the people, the colonists, that fought the Revolutionary War. It was a small percentage. But here's the thing. There were more of us than there was of them, and that's why we won. The American public is in the driver's seat. When people decide for themselves, I've had enough in Washington, and believe me, more people today are saying that than ever before in my lifetime.
I agree, because we're staring down the barrel of another worst election possible. I mean, we really are. I agree, and that's what I'm hopeful for. I am one of the very short list of people that wants a Biden-Trump rematch.
So
I'll argue to death that most people don't want that, and I only want that because it's going to be another shit show, and it's going to show how stupid this thing is that we do over and over and over again.
Stop. Let's win them all locally, and then we'll stop sending that level of largesse to Washington.
But I mean, but
all politics is local.
But all politics is national anymore.
Mm-mm. It's still local.
No, because I mean, you take. I mean,
look. They're getting more. Hold on. How many rounds did it take to elect speaker this time?
More than
the
ever.
guy third
15.
in line. The guy. Let's be clear. The guy third in line to the presidency.
Yeah, it was like a dozen plus.
15. So, but you want. And,
Sam said it. Give him credit. Sam got it right.
And was it a matter of, certainly money played into it because a lot of money was spent to keep certain people in Washington. But my point is, a smaller group of people, based on the rules, said, pause, hold on, time out. We set this standard so that America's interests would not be run roughshod over. That standard still exists for the public. The problem is, and it goes back to the conversation you and I had one time about getting the independents on the ballot in Tennessee.
No, there's no problem getting independents on the ballot.
Or I'm sorry, the
anything but independents, Republicans, or Democrats. Yes,
having a senior moment. Help me.
It doesn't matter. Whichever party you want, the dog party, it's fine.
You know what party I'm talking about.
Porcupine.
Stop.
No, that's the correct answer. Porcupine. There's donkeys, there's elephants, and there's porcupines.
Okay,
It's a bunch of pricks.
Libertarians use the porcupine.
You call them pricks?
Sometimes I have a senior moment.
I was trying to work you to it without just straight saying it.
I know, I was trying to get there.
You calling them pricks?
I didn't pick porcupine.
Look, you don't need.
I thought you were making that up.
You don't need to publicly shame me. I do that very well by myself.
Like there's a national libertarian event. It's called Pork Fest, and I was always confused. I assumed from the libertarian point of view, it was like pork spending. Like that. I thought that was the thing. Is they get together and they talk about ridiculous pork spending, but it's actually
is it PORK or is it PORC?
I think it's PORC.
I thought the porcupine reference was more of the dog, cat, and
I was following. Yes, I was following the animal thing.
I was being so analytical.
Green Party's
I couldn't
animal?
see the forest for the trees.
Green Party got an animal?
Green
No,
Party.
fucking Clinton.
The forest
Whatever.
So seriously,
bring it all together here.
I'm going to say it one more time. Money doesn't win elections. Votes do. The more people that vote, the more people that wake up and say, I've had enough.
Right.
I'm not going to cast a vote next time just because of D or R. I'm going to look into who it is I'm voting for.
I agree.
I'm going to have that conversation with them. Now, you can't have that conversation with the guy running for president.
But see, the problem though is
that's
that
physically impossible.
Even if we have a race where we have a DNR and just an independent, whatever it is, and you go out and you try to talk to people about what's going on, they don't know the individual parts of it. They don't have the time. They don't have the resource, honestly, if I do my best. There's other people that do as well. But I would say at least federally, but I would say locally in the same boat, just because all elections are national anymore, because the national party sets the tone. Is that accurate? The National Republican Party sets the tone for the state party, which sets the tone for the local party. So when we've gotten so stuck on the premise of not them, it's not about who I'm voting for, it's who I'm not voting for. Because I think to me that's the number one issue at play here. It's the Joe Biden won not because it was Joe Biden, because it was not Trump. I think that is accurate.
That's absolutely accurate.
I think that's 100% accurate.
Sure.
Sam's giving me the side eye.
No, I'm looking at you because you're talking.
Okay.
I agree with you.
Okay, so when
a lot of people do that,
when that's how we elect people, then not having other real options at play is what the problem is the real problem to me. And I think that's where ranked choice would come back in as part of the solution to the problem, because it doesn't necessarily require the further education. And I agree that it would be better if more of the populace was more educated and paid more attention.
Good luck.
Exactly. And so as a way to get them...
We all got I say we all. I don't. I don't have a full-time job. Politics is my full-time job, let's be honest. That and cooking for my wife. So cleaning house... I got lots of full-time jobs. So anyway, point being, people don't have enough time to chase down what Joe Biden's doing. They don't have enough time to chase down what their 2 state senators are doing, what their 1 House rep is doing, because honestly, you might live in California and have all those state reps. Only 1 answers to you.
Technically, yeah.
So, again... Where does it start? Where's the beginning for the American public? It's right here at home.
I mean, I agree with that, because this is the first stop on the career of politics.
Not only that, we got to stop sending career politicians to Washington, but we've got to take away what Washington has taken away from the states.
How many
we've
people
allowed them to take stuff from
I agree with you on that part, but how many people...
That is better done here at home so that we can monitor it.
How many people, other than Marjorie Taylor Greene, maybe, off the top of my head, that a federal seat is their first elected job in politics? Like, do you think I don't know the answer to this. This is a real question. I'm guessing that of the 430 whatever in the House, the majority of them, this is their 5th or 6th elected position, if this is their first time in the federal House.
Yes, the majority of people.
And so I'm agreeing with you on that,
yes.
But because those people are created locally, because they were city council people.
And many of those people they get in politics initially because they've set their hair on fire over something. And once elected, and they get in there and they're faced with decisions they didn't know were made because nobody taught them ahead of time what it meant to self-govern, and what the function of government actually is, what the limits of government actually are. They get in there, and now they're being led around by the nose by people who have been doing it for a while and are self-serving and only need you to vote this way, so you're only going to get this information.
Which is why George Santos will keep his job. I agree with you. I agree with you 100%.
This is a we problem, not a they problem.
No, I agree. I'm just saying, like this. This was not. I did not bring George Santos up as a poker.
Money
Republican.
doesn't win elections. Votes do. We're voting. We are voting. They didn't
I can't get behind you.
They didn't get to go there because somebody else voted for them. Or
because we did. No,
they picked
I
who
agree.
voted for
yes,
them.
literally, it takes votes to elect someone. But I would say more often than not,
they have not changed the "we the people" part of the Constitution yet. They're working on it. They are working on it.
It takes money to get them elected.
Yes, I
and I think that's where you guys are crossing lines here. That it's not.
It takes money to deceive people. That's what it takes.
I mean, okay.
And if your election is about deception, sooner or later, people are going to wake up and say, "That's what your election was about."
I brought up George Santos just
and it happened. And it happened this last election cycle. There were a handful of representatives that said, "You know something? The people that sent me here are tired of this process."
Right. I agree.
Politicians aren't getting behind campaign finance reform.
I agree that I agree that
very few of them are behind term limits. I'm not a term limit fan, but if we don't change it sooner, I may have to get behind term limits.
I'm not a term limit person either. But
we have term limits called elections.
I'm iffy on it. There are some career politicians. I was just watching one thing. Both Vermont senators, Leahy and Sanders, have the highest approval rating of any state senators.
Look where they live.
What's your point?
Oh my God! You know something?
Yes, it is a blue state.
Whoa. No, I'm not talking. This has got nothing to do with blue or red or green or purple. I have lived in the Northeast.
I think I
have been to nearly every state in this country.
Hold on. I think the point Sam was trying to make, though, is that they have the citizens of Vermont like them being there and want to keep putting them there. And so that's why term limits are not, you're iffy on term limits.
Let him stay in Vermont. Let him stay in Vermont.
Right, as the senator for Vermont.
Yeah, as the senator, let him make decisions for Vermont. I don't want him making decisions for Tennessee.
Well, but we don't get to elect him because he's the Vermont senator.
So, funny point. We have we have elected representatives. We have elected representatives. That's why there's 2 state senators from every state.
Right.
And that's why the House is much bigger. And that's why we have a House, a Senate. That's why we have a judiciary and an executive branch. It's separation of power. These are simple concepts that most people are just tired of trying to get back to because they're too busy doing something else. And I appreciate that. How many people today, or any time I've ever come on here, how many people have I reached that said, you know something, that Randy guy's just freaking crazy. He's a nut job. But you know something, some of the things he says make sense. And I'm telling you, the idea that the federal government is beyond the scope of the federal government. They've taken on too much and they've done too much.
So I think part of what's happening here is this one of the conversations we've had.
And they're not going to fix it.
It's one of the conversations
they're not interested in fixing it.
And I think I think you and I are on the same page on this.
I'm not scolding you, brother. I'm just passionate.
You know what? Sorry,
I'm not scolding you. I'm just passionate.
No, that I think it comes. I think this goes to that question that we've asked. It's like, well, what are the roles of the different bodies, and what are the roles of the different levels? And I think I'm pretty confident that Randy's a local first kind of guy, at least a state first kind of guy, maybe not a local first kind of guy, which I'm on the same page with. I would prefer. This goes to my stupid utopia that we drew out a couple weeks ago. Remember? which is like upside down and backwards. Mm-hmm. Like I would like.
So what was the date? I got to go back and look at it because if
I would like the
two of you drew out.
No, this was my version. This is not Sam's version, but
okay.
It was like if we're gonna go.
But you talked about it,
right? If we're gonna go like party affiliation style, like the way it would work, I would like the federal government to be as libertarian, as true like hardcore Ron Paul libertarian as we could get away with. I would like our state governments to be true, definitionally old school Republican as we can get with, and then I'm okay with the locals being whichever version, and they can be as far left or right as they want to. I would prefer that the major decisions, the major functional decisions on how my life functions, come out of here, Anakin Cannon, even though I'm not a city resident, or Mayor Jacobs and the city council and the commissions and those who I can actually reach and who I can actually interact with and do that stuff like that. And so to me the role should be of the federal government to make the interstate commerce thing work and to make sure that Russia doesn't bring their Ukraine bullshit over here. That's about it. That's my version.
I said I don't really ponder too much on how I want a perfect government to be formed.
But see, that's how the framers designed it.
And I think, and I don't disagree with you on that. But I think part of the problem, part of the realistic, like the reality that we live in today, problem is that the federalist model isn't very functional anymore either. We're too traversable.
We're too big.
We're too big, but it's also we move too much. We move around too much. It's like too many people go from A to B and C and back and forth. As of this moment right now,
move from one industry to another.
Of a close-knit.
Yes. That's the beauty of our political system that they did set up. They set it up for there will be ways to change and adapt to the systems, to a changing times.
Right, but I think,
and those changes were intended to be done locally.
They admitted that they did not do everything.
They never intended for all those decisions to be made in Washington.
Right, but what I think because what I think one of the issues is that like a way to illustrate the issue the way that I see it is that the Department of Commerce, the U.S. Department of Commerce, has done everything they can to add as many things into interstate under interstate jurisdiction as possible. I've made the complaint on here before. I do business like this studio does business. This one doesn't count because it's obvious. It's all online. The other job, we have 3 brick and mortars. I don't ship things. People walk in the door, I sell them things, and they leave out the door. But I have a Facebook page and I have a website, so I fall under Interstate Commerce Clause. And so everything we do is really under federal law. The state of Tennessee really doesn't fucking matter. Knox County, the city of Knoxville don't really matter, like building code and shit like that. Yes, but as far as the way I could, the way I can interact as a boss with my employees, it's all federal law. I mean, we got audited by the U.S. Labor Board or whatever because we had some discrepancy. I don't know. Actually, we fired a guy and he tried to file unemployment. He'd worked for us for 3 days.
So the Interstate Commerce Clause was founded in sound principles. And while they anticipated much, I think where we went awry is the federal government started to gobble up more and more power to compete with so many changes, and we didn't have, as the nation grew, we had less and less people connected to the day-to-day operations of not only their local community but their state and federal government. Those numbers didn't substantially change. The numbers of how many state senators in every state. Those numbers didn't change substantially to keep up with the actual change in technology, growth, etc. So now we have too few people in Washington. Honestly, if you look at it, the size of this nation, everything we contend with, how many people should actually be in Washington?
Well, I mean,
a lot more elected officials, less more bureaucrats. But the problem with that is we wouldn't get anything done. So why did we continue to send everything there? Because we were sending them more and more money. That taxation from Washington grew and grew and grew.
Because that's always been my thing too. Is that the money should match.
Their ability to borrow money grew and grew and grew.
Because the money should match.
Yeah, we were warned about how to financially fund Washington from the very beginning.
The tariffs and import tax, right?
Yeah, that ship sailed long before I was
That's
ever
a good
born.
pun. That's a really good pun.
But
import tax, ship sailed. Most of the stuff comes in on ships.
I honestly don't believe the things that we face are going to be solved in my lifetime. I do believe that if we continue to do stuff like this and have the conversation, that more and more people are going to come along and go, enough's enough. Right now as it stands today, Tennessee is big enough to be an entire country in and of itself.
Sure.
I'm not advocating that we become our own country. Am I advocating that we need to take more control of what the federal government does, and we need to have some of that control locally? Yeah. But I don't think that by doing so that we continue to completely fund everything the federal government's doing at the level we're doing it. Right. They spend more than they take in. That's a problem. If we did it locally for the state of Tennessee, what we spend would be substantially different than the people in Vermont or Maine.
Right.
Because
that's part of my model. The idea of my model would be that
one size doesn't fit all. Right.
Is that like the big entitlement programs as they were, if actually I don't know. I had a brain explosion that I might not like my own argument, because it might get weird if you have a lot of old people and locals trying to cover Social Security.
It's our biggest generation right now.
Yeah. But if you're, Florida, if Florida had to do Social Security on their own, I don't know, it'd get kind of rough.
I have a lot less snowbirds.
No, they but I mean, it would encourage people to stay in their own locations because they paid into it.
It's not.
We'd have to see how that works.
It's not just Social Security. So, and I've had this conversation with people that spent, a career, 20, 30 years in federal agencies. Some states get more money for X than other states. So and I'm not advocating for the destruction of America as we know it. That's not what I'm saying. But
you heard it here first, folks.
I said I'm not. So I understand what you're saying about, Florida can't fund Social Security. Florida can fund things that the federal government doesn't in Florida. So, but Florida and its residents send money to Washington to fund it. So can Florida fund Social Security?
Right. Well, that's the question. If you took out, if you did the math and you took out what the federal government's taking in things that we would argue that shouldn't be the federal government's responsibility, and let things that the federal government does that a location would want them to continue to do and do it locally, it's a plus one minus one kind of conversation.
Well, I would hope that it's a plus one minus one. Here's the other part of that problem. And one of the reasons it's not going to happen in my lifetime. The federal government can't keep track of what they're spending now.
I know.
And where
they paid your salary in the Navy, and they don't know where it went. But how many $1 trillion can they not pass an audit for?
They didn't pay me $1 trillion. What are you talking about?
They paid a bunch of you something and don't know where it went.
All right, but my point is they can't conceivably, track what they have. So that tells me that one of two things is going to happen. You're going to grow more federal government so they can try and get a handle on it.
Right.
They never will, because now they're just increasing the size and expense and reach.
Like 87,000 new IRS agents, that kind of thing. It's a real number.
That's a political statement. That's all that is. It's a political statement. That's some Weisenheimer in Washington figured out a way to get you, or not you, but the lefty and the righty to fight with each other. And they coined it as, we're going to do X. That's all that was. That was designed to do just that.
Right. It's going to be a couple of years.
So that you're not paying attention to the $7 trillion. You know how much a trillion is? Seriously?
I don't remember. The best illustration of a billion was if you count I can't remember what it was. If you count 1 million seconds, it's a couple.
You're going to die
like
before you
weeks.
Count to a billion.
Right, and a billion's like 70 years, and so a trillion's like 1,000 years or something like that. I can't remember what the math is, but it's something crazy like that. That was the best illustration.
It's inconceivable, but yet we use those terms. When I was a kid, trillion didn't come up very often. We knew it was a term, but realistically, it wasn't something that we dealt with because nothing we did or knew amounted. You're counting the grains of sands on a beach. That's different. But
stars in the galaxy. Yeah.
We didn't say the federal government spends more money than there are grains of sand. So it's unnecessary. It just is, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure it out. It will take a rocket scientist or an actuary, somebody beyond my intellect, how to stop it. Right now, we're looking at a freight train that one person can't stand in front of, hold up their hand and say stop. It's going to take every one of us. And here's the downside to everything we're talking about. We didn't get here overnight, and to stop it is going to be much more painful than the pain we went through to
get. Right, because I think that's one of the things. That's one of the things that kind of started me down the train of the podcast and going out and doing the whole shit. Is that I want a simple answer, and it doesn't exist.
Nope, it doesn't.
I want a simple answer, and it doesn't exist. And I want to, I want an A plus B equals C kind of math, and it's just not there. And yeah, it's gonna. So
you were 40, 41?
I mean, 39 when we started the
podcast. So you were close to 40 when you stopped being an idealist.
I don't know about that.
I turn 61 next month. I'm still an idealist.
I mean, you need to give me a reference of what are we talking about idealist. As far as there's an easy way to fix.
Well, yeah, it's
I was 39 before I gave a shit enough to start looking at the problems. Wow. That's the reality for me. Is like I was 39 and it's like I don't say like some of the biggest stuff was like I know I've told you my KUB stories. I know I've told you my rural metro stories. Like that shit is what got me down the rabbit hole to where we are.
School board.
And it's one of those anybody that's knee deep or waist deep into any of this shit, it's usually because there was something. It was never just I was always into. There's a handful of them. Like Matt's one of them. Matt Shears has always been a politics guy. He was a politics guy in high school, and he's like 17 now, so he's finally getting to be an adult, and he's still super into politics. But
hey, Matt, if you're listening and not watching, I'm laughing, and I'm not laughing at you, brother. I'm laughing with you.
But there are those people out there. There are a handful of those people out there, but for the most part, it's something kicks you in the face, and you start paying attention. And you start really getting after trying to understand it. And and as much as I'm begging for simplicity, I acknowledge that it doesn't exist. But there's lots of parts and pieces that can make it easier for general people who would rather watch a football game on Sunday than to watch the morning news roundtable locally or whatever. There's a bunch of stuff that could exist that doesn't anymore, that could make it easier for people to be at least a little bit more in touch with it. And I think that's one of the biggest things that's missing. I think local journalism at large is missing. I think the Compass guys do great work. I think Brian does great work for that matter. I think it's nothing that's going to light your socks on fire. Is that one of your phrases? Light your hair on fire. That's what it is.
Set your hair on fire.
It's not going to set your hair on fire or anything that he puts out, but he does kind of he has a couple issues that he really gets after. I've been trying to get him to come on the show because I really want him to go through his Merit System Council thing for me because he has a real interest in the sheriff thing. I don't know what his deal specifically is. But I think there's enough people and enough parts of what's going on that it could be distilled into a decent message. And I just don't see that happening. I don't see anybody that has any interest in putting those parts together to get a concise breakdown of what's actually happening without an agenda behind it. Because again, going back to Brian. Brian has an agenda.
What do you think my agenda is? Just really, and I asked that. You're usually the one asking.
Hold on, how's it go?
Difficult.
To promote and elect conservative-minded people.
Elect the best and brightest conservatives to public office.
Yeah,
No, okay.
It was close.
No, all right. So as a party official, that's a stated goal. But me as an individual, what do you think my motivation is? What do you think my end goal is?
I mean, I think you've got. I think with what you just said, some of these problems aren't going to be fixed in my lifetime. I think you, at some point in the between 35 and 65, you've gotten into this. It's not mine anymore. What's next? What are my kids going to have to deal with? My grandkids are dealing with that kind of stuff.
All right. So honestly, you're no different than me. I'm no different than you, Sam. My neighbor, the deepest blue-dyed Democrat, is no different than I am. Truly. We all have the same conversations. How we get there is, and we've talked about that before.
Right.
But
we want to live and do what we want to do and how we want to do it and that kind of thing. And there's an apparatus in place that we have to navigate to do what we want to do, to live how we want to live. And how do we navigate and or adjust said apparatus to make it better for ourselves?
Well, you got to hold people accountable.
And
I've seen some very.
I didn't mean that as a
people,
question, but I meant that as a.
I've seen some very good people get involved in politics, and I've watched it chew them up and spit them out, and it's sad. It truly is. I ask myself a lot of times. I've said it to you. I wake up in the morning. I don't want to know what I know about your government. Yeah, and there's truth in that, but here I am. I'm not going to quit. There are days I have to walk away and because I'm just, 3 bags full. But man, I can't quit. And I think most people feel that way if they knew what to do. How much time have you spent doing this? How many podcasts have you had? How many questions have you asked? You're making a difference. And whether it's one person or 10, not to get all religious, hey, if I talk to one guy and I get him to look at things differently and point him to, the same Savior I know, I did a great thing. I can die a happy man. I did what I was supposed to do. And I think most people feel that way. I want to make a difference. I don't want to just sit here and take it anymore. You're no different than I am. We may get there a different way.
Right.
Well, everybody feels that way. So how do we stop listening to, I got to hate you because of X?
I agree. I think that's sort of I think the premise of I'm voting for you because it's not him or her is the number one problem at play. I mean, I'm just like I think that's it. And the sad part is that's the best method to get elected anymore, even locally. Except if you're George Santos, because somehow nobody bothers to look into the complete lack of facts in your life. But nothing, no giggles on that one. I thought that was a good plug there. I was proud of that.
I was waiting. I was waiting. So that was the build-up. I was waiting for the punch in the mouth finish.
That was the punch in line finish. It's like you can be anything. You could somehow stand up and lie to everybody and get away with it for that long because local media doesn't work. The local politics doesn't work at that matter. Neither party bothered doing any of the research. A little bit of the Republicans did, and some people quit the campaign in the process. But so local parties, local politics. It didn't work until it started getting national media attention. It didn't become an issue that this guy is a full-out 110% liar about everything he does with his life until it became a national issue, which goes back to what I was saying earlier. All politics is national. It doesn't matter unless it's a national issue.
See, my thought was they're just not going to dig into someone for that long, that hard for every single race. For most times, you're going to take somebody at their word.
Well, there's only so much time on.
And in his mind, he was like, somebody should have found this out, and I was like,
so I did a show on who does Inside Tennessee?
NBC.
What station?
WBR.
All right, so BI.
No, I'm sorry, that's the whatever CBS or whatever.
All right, so anyway, I go on Inside Tennessee. And John North catches me just as we're getting ready to walk on stage and start taping. And he says, so So, Randy, that nonsense about, getting rid of parks and recreation and not funding the senior center, none of that's going to work here. And I looked at him and I was like, you took the time to find out that much information about me so that you can try and throw me off my game just as we're going on camera. And now you're probably going to say something on camera about it as well. And I'm okay with that. But guess what? All those organizations right now, John, in Medford, New Jersey, are succeeding without government help.
So for context, this was, when did this taping happen?
2018.
And when were you mayor of?
Before I came to Knoxville, so 11, 12, 13, 14. So before I came to Knoxville.
So this is an event that happened 10 years prior to this.
No,
taping.
it wasn't 10. It was 5.
Okay. Regardless, but the point I think you're coming across here is that
I was an elected official. He's bringing up something.
Some guy,
and now I'm the chairman of the party. So
some guy in Knoxville who's going to talk to you on TV about politics locally and stuff like that.
In Knoxville.
Right. Had reference to a thing that
I did.
He philosophically, politically disagreed with that you did
yes.
At a previous job 5-6 years ago.
Why? Because he wanted to disparage the other guy. He didn't bother checking the facts. He didn't bother checking the outcomes. He didn't bother, wanting to talk about why we did and made the decisions we made.
Did you tell him that on the show? Or did he bring it up on the show?
So here's the funny thing, and this was my point. Local media. The show's only so long. Right. You only have so much time.
Right. The format of the show is its own problem. Right.
All the finite details, the whole story. We were talking before we went on tonight about another issue. Nobody wants the whole story. They want that sexy 60-second soundbite so they can get the upper hand.
Well,
don't tell the whole story because the public doesn't need all the information, because if they have all the information, we're out on our year. That's how the media works. That's how most of your elected officials work, because that's the model that they've created to hang on to whatever the heck it is they think they're hanging on to.
We work better.
They're not helping us.
We work better when you don't know.
There you go. I don't have to answer to you. I can feed you a lot. I didn't lie to you. I told you the truth. Randy gutted. He eliminated Parks and Recreation and stopped funding the seniors.
And you're right. And you don't have the time for the nuance of the story, so we're just going to give you the top line and move on.
There you go. I
think that's a universal on a lot of things. I think my 87,000 IRS agent things. It's a top line story. I don't know the depths of the story. I just know that I heard that in a phrase in passing. And I don't like the IRS anyway, so I'm going to make fun of the fact that they hired 87,000 people.
So here's my thought about the tax code. Okay. How much money do you need? And what's my share? Can you answer that question, IRS? No. Well, then you get nothing.
Right. I love the I can't remember who did it. There was a meme or something that was going on.
What happened to the money I already gave you? I don't know.
Right. The idea is that okay, it's that time of year. How much do you owe me? Okay. Do you not know how much I owe you? Yeah, we know how much you owe us, but I want you to tell me. Oh, well, I think it's this much. You're wrong. Audit, extra money, blah 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 blah. That's a terrible rendition of the joke, but the idea is that it's like how do you not know what why do I have to come up with it? I'm not an accountant. I hire an accountant to take care of this for me. Shouldn't it just be as simple as okay, you know how much. So here it is, and moving on. But no, we have to spend... the idea that it's like, okay, so it's February 3rd now. So 4 days ago, any business had to have their W-2s printed and in the mail by law 4 days ago.
Yep.
And what's April 16th?
Mm-hmm.
Is tax day. So the idea that it's going to take... that you need 3 months to figure out how much you owe them when they already know the answer to that always kind of bothered me. Now, my taxes are a whole different animal, and
but there are exceptions. You know more about why you don't owe them as much as they think you should owe them.
Mine's a whole different animal, and it's all paperwork and ridiculousness.
Yeah.
It's really complicated, but that's because I have a lot of different shit going on, and I can,
So how about...
So you admit that, but you're saying, for most people, why is it so complicated? Well, for me, mine's complicated, so it's going to take me a while.
It still should.
How are you different than most Americans?
How many Americans own businesses?
More than you think.
How many Americans own multiple businesses?
I don't fucking know. You're asking me questions that I don't know.
Okay,
so please don't do that.
I'm assuming I'm in a small subsect of the population that has a W-2 job.
There's a lot of people that have small businesses. There's a lot of people out of the pandemic. A lot of people started podcasts and all sorts of little online businesses.
It's true.
So it has been growing. Say more money is recouped by small businesses by the IRS than major corporations.
Well, obviously.
Okay.
So what are you going to do when they say you wake up in the morning, you go to the sink, you turn on the water, you're going to brush your teeth, and there's no water? You call the water department and you say, "Hey, I got no water," and they say, "Well, we're going to turn your water back on when you fix this correction on your tax return." "No, my taxes are fine. I filed. I was on time. It's all correct." "Well, no, in our opinion, it's not." Then what? Did you see the commercial? Guy's going to get out of his car, and he can't get out of his car until he buys the insurance for breakdowns on his car. Everybody gets the phone call, extended warranty insurance, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So now the guy can't get out of his car because his car locked him in it. Technology deal.
Right.
Locked him in his car because he hasn't bought the extended warranty. Well, we're gonna shut your water off. We're gonna shut your electric off. We're gonna turn off your TV. Because you didn't do what we wanted you to do,
right?
Or the way we wanted you to do it. That's scary.
Well, the whole time you're telling that story, I'm thinking of how much I feel like property tax is criminal. I think property tax is criminal.
It's my property. Why am I paying taxes on it?
Well, it's not even. It's not even. It's like it's not my property. I'm renting it.
Well, if you're renting it, you're not paying property taxes.
No, but I'm renting my property from the state because if I don't pay my property tax, what happens?
So, but to my point, it's my property. Why am I paying taxes on it? If you need money for me to run the government, tell me what that is. I'll stroke you that check. But don't ask me for more money than you need. Don't come and tell me you had to borrow money because I didn't give you enough. That should have been part of your calculation.
Because you might agree with that. It's like one of the things that I have a problem with as a business owner is the idea that I am now the tax collector in the state of Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't get paid for this job.
Why?
I don't get paid to be the tax collector.
They don't pay for stuff when they buy it in your store? You're going to have to bake that into your bottom line.
I'm just saying, like, I am now, like, I do my business, and then on top of doing my business, I collect taxes for the state, hold that money, and then I'm obligated to send that money to the state periodically.
So you understand that most of the professionals that your government hires bakes into their bottom line extra money so that they can pay for stuff like, campaigns for politicians that pass laws that keep them, in the life they're accustomed to. Same thing applies to their taxes, to anything else.
I mean, right? Because to me, one of the things that I think is criminally negligent on media's part is credit cards. I think the idea that the average American doesn't know that their 1.5% kickback credit card is costing them probably an average of 5% on their shit.
But it sounds good. You get 1% cash back.
But that it's costing them an average of 5% more. Things cost 5%, 6-7% more because everybody uses credit cards. Because the store you shop at, they have to pay the fees. And they pass those fees on to you, the customer. And so you go buy a bag of chips for 99 cents. If everybody didn't pay with credit cards, those chips would be 85 cents.
It costs them more money to process change, too. So they say there's a coin shortage. And look, there are so many things that are wrong with the world. Government is just one of them. We are the problem. There are people out there that are preying on people for whatever reason, and it's not just.
I agree. I think the general apathy towards general engagement with the political system by people at large. I mean, what did Mayor Jacobs win? How many votes did he get? 37,000 to 32,000 or whatever.
No, it was larger margin than that.
Whatever the margin. That doesn't point.
Anyway,
the combined total was
doesn't matter.
The combined total was like a quarter.
He won by 23 votes the first time. So,
but I'm just saying
a win's a win.
It's not a win or loss thing. The combined total of votes was 30%, 20% of the population that could vote.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
It's not how much who or whatever won by. It's that is how many people are bothering to vote. And especially in this like pop culture, like, you get vote, show your sticker, blah, 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 bullshit. It's like, you get some little, stupid win, post your picture on yourself. You get to go out there on Facebook and be like, I voted today, yay.
They give high school students extra credit. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, see, I don't know. Like, that's one of the things that I get weird on. Because, like, I'm kind of getting to the point.
Get high school extra credit for what?
Voting.
I mean, if you're in a government class, I can see that. And if there's a government class in high school at all anyway, but if your civics class that you're taking in high school says go out and vote and come back and show me your sticker, I'll give you like 5 points extra credit. Sure, whatever.
There's all sorts of bullshit to give you extra credit for.
That's pay to play, but whatever. I don't really give a shit.
I didn't turn 18 until after I graduated anyway.
So I didn't send.
I missed. My senior year of high school, I missed election day by 2 days.
I would. My
birthday is early November, so depending on the cycle, I think somebody could probably go fact check this for me. But my recollection was I couldn't vote because I turned 18 like 2 days after election day.
So I would much rather we spent the time explaining that you let the kid have to go vote to explain to him why he's voting, and we don't do that.
Oh, they got excused from school to go vote? Oh, yeah. Never mind. Most schools are closed anyway.
Yeah.
Ours was because it's a polling place.
But my premise is we don't spend enough time in school, public education.
The question here, Randy,
explaining government.
And the question here is why?
Doesn't serve our
because the government
purpose.
The government controls the classroom, don't they?
Doesn't serve our purpose.
Who's our? That's the problem. Like,
I wake up in the morning.
It's like that to me is one of the biggest issues that it's so weird to watch the arguments about. It's so weird to watch people argue about schools because of that part of it.
Which part?
Because if you're even remotely left leaning, which most maybe not most teachers, that's a part. Most teachers that I know at least seem to be left leaning that are complaining about this, that, and the other that's going on in the schools and all this kind of stuff. The people that control what goes on in your classroom are not the people that you politically agree with. That is the problem. The problem is that the politics are part of the school. And we want the schools to better educate our kids about how to engage civically. This is what we talked about last week with Tyler. We had Tyler Givens in last week. As we were talking about last week, Tyler's like, we want to produce like well-rounded. We were talking about the German model or whatever. We want well-rounded German citizens. That's what the German model does. Blah 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 blah. Do we want to have well-rounded, civically minded people that understand the system that are smart enough to engage in the political system coming out of our high schools? No, obviously, the answer is no, because the people that control what goes on in our high schools aren't producing that. Because if they wanted to do that, they could, because they are elected and they oversee those things, and they don't do it over and over and over again.
So the biggest detriment to our public education system is legislation and administration of that system. That's the biggest detriment. Most teachers are committed. Teachers are committed,
obviously, because they don't need to care to make money with their life.
And the problem is they are fed. They're told constantly, this is why you can't have. This is why you can't do.
Right.
All they want to do is teach. They don't want to get in the minutia of politics. They don't want to end over burdensome regulation and administration. They're unwilling to take time out of their time that They're trying to focus on education and stop the largesse, stop the stuff that makes their job harder. Most of them don't know how. I've had many conversations with principals, with teachers.
I would like Christy to actually fucking matter to what goes on in our schools. Like, I would like that to actually matter. But it doesn't. And I would say that I could walk into my kids' schools, either one of them. I got 2 different schools that we go to now. And I can walk into schools and talk to those teachers. And they could probably name who their school board reps are and who represents their school and stuff like that. But they probably don't know the difference. Maybe a government class does. But they probably don't know the difference on who actually controls what's going on in their rooms.
No,
certainly the parents don't.
No, they don't. Nor do they have any idea how much it costs. Why can't we pay our teachers more? The school board actually controls a very small portion of the huge amount of money they get. You know, the Knox County schools, perfect example. I know the number. You know, we're just over $500 million annually for public education. That doesn't include all the other stuff they're getting, but that's the number they're getting. How much does the Knox County School Board control of that $500 million? On your best day, maybe 6-10%.
Right.
70% of it is already regulated and decided. 70-75% is already regulated and decided. You have no choice but to spend it.
Right. They have fun games where they do bulk buys on books.
And then
instead of doing annual book buys.
The difference in that is controlled by the administration organization within public schools, and it's a large amount of money. So your legislature is mandating you do X. The administrators are putting other stuff in place, and what's left over for the local governing school body to play with generally relates to what the school teachers are paid. So they get the least, they get scraps, and then they're told, well, yeah, we have money, but you got to jump through all these hoops to get it for your classroom. And, you know, the administrators tell them, yeah, you can pay for that out of your own pockets. It's easier if you don't want to go through that hassle. And the administrators deliberately make it cumbersome and difficult and time consuming.
The local or the state administration?
Local and state.
Okay.
They make it cumbersome, and the teacher throws up their hands and they take it out of their pocket. And then the administrators turn around and say, if they give us more money, we could fix that problem for you. It's like, you created the problem. You're not interested in fixing it.
All right. So we're running out of time. So I want to close. I want you to I mentioned I wanted you to square some circles or circle some squares for me. All right. So as a party,
fire away.
Right. So as the Republican platform party, square additional regulation and taxes on hemp-related products in the state of Tennessee. It already exists. It's already here.
Yeah.
It's already, for the most part, pretty well self-maintained. So square the additional tax and other costs in testing and other regulations that they want to add to the industry with the Republican platform.
So the Knox County Republican Party has not weighed in on hemp products and its use in local or state legislation, or national for that matter. My understanding right now is the state legislature has a number of different committees reviewing everything as it relates to medical marijuana, hemp.
I mean, the top line one that I'm speaking on is from Briggs, who is a Knox County rep. Okay, and for that matter, Massey historically has been.
So that's not a. Let's be clear. That's not a Republican Party platform. That's an elected official. That's not a Republican Party platform.
But
are they both Republican? And we've had this conversation
and this
before.
Is where I get lost every time.
They are not. They were elected to public office to serve everybody's interest, and they were endorsed by they're the party they affiliate with. And we've had this conversation. It's a fine point, but that does exist. They don't represent the Republican Party. They represent all the constituents in Knox County, in their district. I have my own personal thoughts about him. We talked about that before. As it stands right now, Knox County has not taken any position on this. And there are, like I said, there are bills floating around the legislature. When something gets out of committee or gets to a point in committee where they're ready to present enough information and it comes down to legislation, then the party's going to weigh in. And if it's...
Maybe it's a process thing that
again, it probably is a process thing.
I don't think so.
Specifically as it relates to the regulation of hemp in the state of Tennessee, I've learned a lot over the past couple of months. I had a conversation with, a couple of lobbyists in Nashville, and I learned things I didn't know. And some of the concerns I had were dispelled. But they also raised some issues that caused me concern. Right now, recreational marijuana is being delivered in the state of Tennessee through modes that and I'm a 61-year-old man. That's not how it was delivered. I could literally, kids are using marijuana in classrooms and they're going undetected. In my mind, that just doesn't make sense. Should the state weigh in and regulate it? How did we get to that point? First of all, and
because technology moves faster than the state can. I mean, that's the answer to that part of the question.
Well, then we've got the wrong people in public office, in my opinion. But it still doesn't matter. We allowed it to get to that point. We got a problem.
See, but this is where I push back.
We shouldn't be arguing about whether or not,
we allowed it is where I take issue. We allowed it. We allowed it. Who allowed it? And who is supposed to be the one that oversees said allowings?
All right. So we the people allowed it to get to this point.
Uh-huh.
We allowed.
But aren't we the Republicans supposed to be the?
We can't control how fast technology grows.
Hold on. But aren't we?
Oh no, but we should be aware that it's growing to the point.
At the same time, the legislative process is not that quick, and I don't want the legislative process to be that fast.
There you go.
But aren't we the? And I'm not part of we the Republicans, but aren't we the Republicans of the personal responsibility, personal choice group? You take care of your own shit and leave me alone?
So, all right. So back to your original question. Your question was...
Square the circle.
Square the circle. Where's the platform? What's the platform? Knox County Republican Party doesn't have a platform when it comes to the regulation of hemp products. It doesn't. Like I said, there are bills floating around the legislature. Is there something specific as it relates to one of those bills you think we ought to get on? What is the specific?
I mean, I guess the problem is that you say you
there's
think we ought to get on.
100 different things that concern me. To Sam's point, I don't want the legislature legislating anything to fix a problem. We have laws in place and enforce those. If a law needs to change, let's change it. That's where the legislature comes in. What are they changing? Or what are they not changing? Be specific. You ask for a party platform, I'm telling you, that's where I'm coming from as a party official. What is it we're doing or not doing? What is it you want me to support or not support? And not because you're a Republican or not a Republican. What, to your point, is this a function of government?
That's my problem is that we have Republican Briggs.
No, we have Senator Briggs. Let's be clear.
No,
we have State Senator Briggs, not Republican Briggs.
You guys, you gave him the stamp of approval.
Well, hold on. Just to be clear,
don't be pointing fingers now.
He's not in my district. Okay?
But your party locally gave him the stamp to be allowed to put that R next to his name on the ballot, inferring that he goes under some sort of guidelines that R means something. The R means something, right?
And again, you're making the assumption that everything Briggs does is a reflection on the party, and I'm telling you it's not. I cannot imagine in any world that I would agree with anyone 100% of the time.
But then what? But that's what we go back to every time. Every time it goes back to, then what's the point? What does the R mean if it only holds up when I feel like it needs to hold up? If it only holds a place,
what you're saying
it only holds a place to get me elected.
What you're saying is we have to agree 100% of the time.
No, I'm saying
or he can't be a member of the party.
Well, what was the problem with Manus? The party hated Manus.
Well, wait a second. The party hated. Define the party.
Sam and I sat in on the phone call on the Ostermanis. What was the? I don't remember the title of the meeting, but it was the
state executive committee.
Right, on whether Manus actually was Republican enough to be a Republican. Now he said he was a Republican, and he felt like he was a Republican, and he checked the boxes and he passed the bylaws test initially with some. He was within the bylaws, was he not? He had vouched from the appropriate number of people.
So the bylaws, as it relates directly to Manus, the bylaws state that any two Republicans from the district which Manus was running in that challenge his right to be on that ballot as a Republican have the right to file that challenge and have it heard by the state Republican Party, and that's what happened.
Right. And so
they followed the bylaws.
Okay, and so did he. And that's why I think the party didn't bother kicking him off the ticket.
Well, I think the finer point was the reason for the challenge
was because
while the bylaws didn't expressly or explicitly address people that weren't currently serving in the legislature that donated to Democrat candidates running against a Republican
in a legally nonpartisan race. No, that's not true. I'll take it back. I'm sorry. I was wrong. Sorry.
So again, you keep using the term Republican Briggs. Same thing applies. You can use the term Republican Manus.
Why did
Manus was not?
I haven't got the chance. I've tried. I've reached out to Eddie Manus and asked him honestly why he didn't run again, because he's not going to answer that question.
Because
I think I know the answer.
Elaine Davis.
I think he could have beat Elaine Davis.
He couldn't.
No, you're right. In a primary, you're right, because
in
the way
a
the system
Republican
works,
primary, he was
probably
going to
couldn't
lose
have.
because he voted against, and that is written in the bylaws. When you don't support,
when you don't do what you're supposed to do because the party tells you to do it, you're not really a Republican.
No, not the party. The majority of people in your caucus, whether it's Republican, and this is. It doesn't matter whether it's D or R within your caucus.
I will go. I will have the same conversation with Matt when I get the chance. It doesn't matter.
All right.
The moral of the story is you're trying to paint Briggs as an individual on an issue that I'm trying to make a party issue, and you're saying, well, this is an individual thing. This isn't a Briggs thing. But when I bring it over here, Briggs it's a party thing.
Briggs is one of 33 state senators in the state of Tennessee. He ran as a Republican. There are state senators that will not vote and agree with Senator Briggs. And they may be Democrat, they may be Republican. That's how that works.
So what's the point of the title if it doesn't? That's what I don't get. Like you're putting a surname on a thing that doesn't mean anything.
So the majority,
or it does mean something, and you're breaking rule.
The majority of and Eddie Manus said himself, "I'm a fiscal conservative, but I'm a social liberal." Well, that doesn't fall into...
Which is why I tried to talk Eddie Manus into running as a libertarian, because that's probably more accurate to who he actually is. But that doesn't exist, and you don't win races that way. And you certainly don't get shit done in state government when it's 40, 33, 40, whatever it is of 50.
And the public stays home and doesn't vote, right? Yes. Okay, so anyway, back to So the issue you're talking about is Senator Briggs is not supporting, or he's in opposition to...
No, he is actively trying to add a tax and regulation to an industry. And from what I understand of Republicans, that's usually the opposite.
I think he's trying to find middle ground, but that's speculation.
I agree. I agree that he's trying to find middle ground, because I think reality, I think he would go full ban on everything. Because
has he stated the reason? Is there?
No, I've been trying to get a hold of him, try to get him to come to the show and talk about it, because I do want to talk about it sober, not like I am right now.
All right, so I'll ask him. Okay. I'll ask him. So I'll commit.
I've emailed his group.
I will commit right now on behalf of Knox County Republican Party to reach out to Senator Briggs and ask him specifically
to come on my show. Let me ask him.
Why he hold on, bear with me. Why he introduced that legislation, whether or not it makes sense, and whether or not it's a tenet.
Well, while you're doing
of a conservative organization,
and while you're doing it,
also known as the Republican Party.
And while you're doing it, ask him who asked for it.
Is he the main sponsor of the bill?
He is right. He is the original.
Sure.
That's a simple question. That's what you should have asked.
Who asked for this?
Well, why is Briggs, sponsoring?
Okay. So moving on.
Legislation to add a tax.
I've got a couple of circles to square off here. Okay, so that's one. All right.
That's one.
So as a Republican,
ouch, that took way too long. We got there pretty quick once we. Okay.
No, I don't think we've resolved anything other than hopefully you're going to get me Briggs on the show.
Well, I'll try that as well, but I'm curious now as well. I'll look at it and. Hey,
but
why are
again,
we doing this?
My understanding of it's my understanding of what a Republican is. So so one of my libertarian podcasts I listen to the most, one of his methods when he's going into conversation is if I'm going to talk to somebody from the left, I out-left the left. If I'm going to talk to somebody on the right, I out-right the right. Okay? So last year, when the weird-ass, what was it? We talked about it. The bill that was literally banning Delta 8 hemp, all the kind of shit that we do for the day job. When we were advocating, when that bill came up, it was the original subtitle on it was changing the date for the Department of somebody to the Department of Agriculture to submit some sort of information. That was the original caption on the bill. And by the time it came through all the different amendments and audits and all the different process and all that kind of shit, it was a literal 100% hemp ban. And then it died in subcommittee. It never got voted on in subcommittee. The end of session came along, and that's what killed it. All right, so we were following this whole thing the whole way through, and we were chasing it down. And so I can't remember exactly who it was, but the closest person in the subcommittee that was involved was up in Anderson County or something like that. And so, I called their office, and I was like, I went and I found who it was, and I found them in the subcommittee. It's like, you're a Republican, right? And it's like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And so I'm talking to his assistant or whatever. And it's like, as a Republican, help me make sense of how we are going to regulate people out of choice. Because that's the method. That's the method that I do whenever I'm talking about anything I want to talk about. When I'm going to regulate stuff. If I'm talking to a Democrat, I'm going to go further left than they are, because they're probably wrong anyway. And I'm going to go the further left version of it. I'm going to do the same thing on the right version.
I get it.
Right? And so that's the method I go do that. And so that's what I'm talking about on this one, that particular with Briggs. In the hemp law thing, it's like, as a Republican, because I thought the Republican Party was less taxes, less regulation. But there's a Republican introducing a more tax, more regulation bill.
Well, you could apply the same methodology or thought process to the idea of they're horsing around with the gas tax and changing, trying to eliminate the gas tax, make it a user fee based on mileage, blah, blah, blah.
I don't like that for a lot of reasons, but go ahead.
Right now, they're just looking at it. And I'm just... And the reason I phrased it the way I did and said I would reach out, you're the first person that has mentioned it to me. There are a lot of things I follow in Nashville, and I follow them for my own personal reasons, but I also follow them because it does have an impact on politics. It just does.
Well, put it this way.
I'm interested.
My ability to do the show is dependent on how this bill comes through. So, square another circle for me.
Fire away.
All right, so this is a local. This is actually a more local one. I don't know if the Knox County party has a stance on this, but school choice has been a big thing, right?
Yeah,
a lot of talking about how parents' rights. Christy, I can't remember who put it up, but we have a parents' bill of rights thing that's going around in the school board right now from one of the Republican members of the school board, and we're trying to make the point that parents should have the at the end of the day, the parents should have the bottom line on their kids, right? So square the circle of how
at some point through legislation, we determined that kids have to go to school.
Mm-hmm.
So just before we jump off,
okay,
if we're going to take the kid out of public school, they're still going to get an education, right?
Sure.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure.
Right. So
I'm not going to be accused of saying, Randy's all for no more school, no more books.
So we're going to take off Briggs, and we're going to stay in the subdistrict of Zachary and the same animal.
Right.
So we're still on state stuff, but it's local as well. Zachary is tip-tops on the killing of the Vanderbilt trans clinic thing, right?
Yes. I'm familiar.
Okay, so square the circle on how Zachary and the Republican Party at large is going to say parents have the right to handle their kids, except for X. Where do we draw the line where X actually exists?
So there are.
To me, this is a simple one to me. To while you're thinking, I
think you're oversimplifying it.
No, it's a simple one to me. Parents are right or parents are wrong. Are parents right or wrong? Now, at least at large, in the local contingent of Republicans, both state and local. This is a Mayor Jacobs point too. He likes to run off his fucking mouth about how kids shouldn't be indoctrinated at school and stuff like that. Am I wrong? So. This is not a state level issue. This is a local level issue as well.
Vanderbilt's not here. That's not a local level issue.
You're right, but
that's a state issue.
You're right, but the state banning the parents' ability to take healthcare decisions for their kids away from them is a local issue as well. Especially if you're going to argue that parents have the not just the choice but the responsibility of making sure their kids are educated and being involved in their education. Which one has more value? A kid's education or a kid's health? To a parent. I would argue they're pretty damn close.
I don't think that one is certainly a child's. You want your children to be healthy.
Sure.
Okay.
But you also don't want them to be dumb.
That's true. And
I would say it's pretty close. I would on a scale I would say they're pretty balanced.
When we're dealing with social issues, because honestly these are social issues. Are they your children or are they the government's children? But at the same time, the government regulates healthcare. And one of the other things we were going to talk about was
certificate of need. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So the government has a role and a function in determining what's appropriate in healthcare. Wait, let me finish.
Okay.
Let me finish. Let me finish.
All right.
So the government can say you have to get a shot because it's in the public health's interest.
Okay.
We're trying to stop a pandemic.
Okay.
That allegedly they believe they have the authority to do that. I'm not certain that unless you prove to me that me having the shot saves me.
Okay, we're not going down a COVID rat hole. We can forget COVID and all this. Just we'll go back to like smallpox and shit like that.
But the same thing applies, in my mind, to the care of a child. Beating your child until it bleeds and bones are broken is unacceptable. It's your child. You should be able to discipline your child. But beating that child to the point where it's hurt is unacceptable. And we have laws against that. Have we, ran off the rails on that? I grew up in a household where you got paddled if you did something wrong.
I got
At some point, that paddling stopped because I grew to the point where I could be reasoned with. And the punishment was different.
Right. Or the worst thing you could do is say it doesn't hurt.
You're not whipped.
Right. That one time you
told him it didn't hurt?
Right.
Oh,
that's where I screwed up, yeah.
Right. So anyway, so when you're talking about what's going on at Vanderbilt and you're talking about gender assignment surgeries and et cetera, as a child and medical science has proven that a human's brain isn't fully developed until sometime in your mid-20s. Some people argue it happens
25
earlier, but generally the accepted age is 25.
Right, but at the same time, just a tiny little subset. We don't have to go down this rabbit hole, but at the same time, this new 865 Academies program is trying to get 14-year-olds to pick what they're going to do with their lives.
All right, so I'm going to square the circle.
Okay.
We elect people to public office. We don't always agree. The Knox County Republican Party doesn't have an official position on it. I can tell you with some degree of. Let me finish.
I'm just you're good.
I know you think it's funny.
I don't think
it's funny. I don't think it's
hilarious.
I don't think it's funny.
No, I got
because quite frankly, we have laws. We elected people to public office. They wrote laws. We have people elected to public office that are changing laws routinely, daily.
Mm-hmm.
What's the number this time? We're over 1,200 bills that are going to be filed.
Right.
And how much is actually going to be taken out of committee? I'm focused on those because much of this is minutia. Like you said, much of it is the press making a mountain out of a molehill.
Okay.
I don't want more government, and the Republican Party doesn't want more government that isn't absolutely necessary. And I can't think of much legislation that has come out of Knox County, the state, or the federal government that was necessary. And the majority of legislation that we're getting is a correction of bad legislation that we already wrote and we're just trying to fix. So when it comes to the gotcha of Vanderbilt, I got to be honest with you. Any medical decision made on behalf of a minor should be made by a parent with the input of professional medical advice. It's that simple. At the same time, that child who is controlled by an adult that may or may not be stable gets to make the decision. Who's going to advocate on behalf of the child? The courts step in all the time. If we're going to write legislation like that, I'm in favor of it. And I think the Republican Party is in favor of it.
Well, legislation like what?
If you're
there's a liability to the parents if they fuck this up. There's liability to the doctor.
I'm not talking about a liability. I'm talking about medical necessity. I'm talking about what does the medical community. What is the best medical?
I don't know, because that medical necessity ship has sailed. You've got some high potency prescriptions for acne shit for kids. Medical necessity, no. Is it a lifestyle betterment thing? Sure, we do that all the time. There's plenty of options out there for other things that aren't medical necessities that we put in our kids. How many kids are on Adderall in the state of Tennessee?
Not everybody puts it in their kids.
Not everybody, because the parent stops it.
Right.
Because the parent makes the decision.
Okay.
But the parent's wrong this time. That's what doesn't make sense. The parent's wrong this time, but they're not the other times. The state of Tennessee is smarter than the parent, except for this one. Or the parent is smarter than the state of Tennessee, except for this one. That's what doesn't make sense to me.
All right.
Where do we draw this except for line? And to me, if you're going to say parents are smart enough and parents are supposed to be the ones that make the choices, and I agree that there is a line, and that line is actual abuse.
But I think
real abuse, not feeding the kid, beating the shit out of him for no good fucking reason. Those are things that should be punishable crimes. Now, if we're going to go through the process of a surgery.
What you're saying is that's not what's being done in the legislature right now. They're not having those conversations.
I don't know if they are or not. But they're pitching I mean, I'm sure there are. I would guarantee Gloria Johnson is taking my side of this argument right now against Zachary in the House. Sure.
And does
Gloria Johnson's word have any? How much of that is
political theater and has absolutely nothing to do with what your concern is or my concern, which is the interest of the parental rights and the child.
But the political theater has already killed the clinic. They're not even doing it anymore because they don't want to have to worry about getting legislated out of existence. It's already happened. They already won. And the law's not even passed yet.
Okay, well, wait a second. Now we're talking about something entirely different. Any decision made by Vanderbilt was made by Vanderbilt.
Okay.
Whether they made it under the threat of legislation or public optics.
Okay, you're right.
All of that's irrelevant.
You're right. I apologize.
That's irrelevant.
You're correct. But we have Zachary here in Knox County. They
didn't close down for nothing.
Who is the face of this thing? As a Republican,
Sam, I don't disagree. They didn't. They did it for a reason. Okay, and I would. It is irrelevant.
But I would say the public outcry.
I would say their reasons for doing it are equally as concerning.
I say they looked at the state house and saw that it is Republican majority, and
I'm sure
that if it went to the floor, it would have passed.
I'm sure Vandy at large has funding coming from Nashville in a whole different way.
All right, so
that this little subset of Vandy is concerned that is not important to Vandy at large is enough of a concern to make sure that Vandy as a whole unit doesn't piss off Nashville. That would be my assumption. That the actual tip top of Vandy says, hey, this thing, we're cool with this thing, except for when the state starts giving a shit about it, and we're going to stop. It's a bottom line dollars and bills conversation that the top brass at Vandy
I don't think Vandy was looking at complete closure.
No, they're not at all. But they're looking at
exactly.
We're going to avoid having to figure out how to deal with all this other shit. Because how many different things do you think Vandy does that has direct connection to what goes on in Nashville every day? Not just physically because they're in Nashville, but just like actual Nashville government wise.
Right.
How many different things and
just
bills and different
Vanderbilt
shit.
in general.
Right.
A prestigious national hospital in general. Yeah.
Right. And so to avoid any shit that has nothing to do with it, because the state legislature has the track record, if you will, of going after the totality of an entity for a subset of what that entity does. And so Vandy Tip Top says, we'd rather keep existing the way we're existing and let that thing go to deal with the bullshit that's going to happen if we fight for this. And you can't blame them for that subset.
So what was it exactly? And back to, I'm going to finish this one just like we finished the other one. What is it specifically? Because you want me to square corners. I'm willing to square corners, but I have to know exactly what it is that's being done that is contrary to
our parents. So for this one, go ask Zachary. For me, is our parents right or wrong? Do parents in period? That's the point. The point is, do parents have the authority to take care of their kids or not? Do the parents have the choice to make medical and educational decisions for their kids? Put it that way.
Specifically, what is Zachary doing that leads you to believe that he's taking away a parent's right to care for their child?
He is specifically going after a cosmetic procedure for a child that a parent can have permission on for no good reason. That's not a really good. That's terrible phrasing.
And so and let's not mince words.
Look, okay, you want to be. We'll break it down the simple way. I think it's a bad idea. I think you're a bad parent if you let your kid transition at 14. Personally,
transition to what?
To transition to whatever isn't the gender that you gave them when you birthed them. I think it's stupid.
Install a dog's tail on my child's butt because I want to, that's okay.
No.
Okay. So
are you a dog? Or is your child a dog?
Hold on.
Is your wife a dog?
Hold on.
There's a good joke in there. Come on.
Let me finish. So
it's a Rodney Dangerfield or something.
So if and this truly is what we're talking about. So if a parent believes or wants their child's gender to be altered or prepare it to be altered, should they have the right to do so?
I think you need to work on that phrasing, because I don't believe, to my understanding, it's not just the parent. It's not it's not that I said, "Hey, I want my son to be a girl." It's that my son my son feels like they're a girl. I'm okay with that. Let's talk about what this is, and gender dysphoria, whatever the fucking phrasing we want to use is. Let's talk about that and let's explore this conversation a little bit.
So
will they be more comfortable?
New. This is not something new. When I was a kid, I was the $6 million man. You know, I ran and made the noise and yeah.
Time out.
And also Massachusetts. So you know, yeah.
All right, I had to pee everybody.
To my point,
they talk about
they have different cultures.
All right. Anyway, $6 million man, go.
No.
I had to pee so bad.
My parents had no interest in installing bionics in my body, and I am grateful that they didn't.
Okay, why? Hold on. You did
when I was. Let me finish.
What bionics are you talking about?
When I was a $6 million man, he had bionics. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Right, but did you ask them to? Did you say that it was to your
hold on
well-being?
If I thought for a minute...
Did the technology actually physically really exist? Or was it a TV show?
Some of it did.
Yeah.
And we were making glass eyeballs and other... Yes.
Glass eyeballs that worked? Or glass eyeballs that look cool?
That look cool.
Okay.
You know, this
is a great example.
At 10, 11, 12 years old, kids... It doesn't matter whether it works. It looks cool. Give me a claw hand.
Sure.
You know, and I can pretend like I'm the $6 million man. They didn't... And had I asked them... It wouldn't have happened.
Okay.
If my child, and all right, full disclosure, I'm going to share a personal story. I have a daughter.
Nobody listens.
I have a daughter that is in a committed relationship with another woman. I don't love her any less, but at whether she was 5 or 15, if she came to me and said, "Dad, I need to, you know, have something done to me to make me different," yeah,
you would have said no.
I'd have been like, no. Okay. Not because I don't appreciate the fact that she wanted to live an alternative lifestyle.
Okay.
But that's just not a decision for a 15-year-old to make.
I agree.
If we're
that's a decision for a 15-year-old and their parents to make, and to have a real conversation about what that means.
No, wait a minute. Okay, now we're going to get into the opinion part of it. We've already established in this country the age of adulthood begins when?
Wrong.
Well, wait.
Whatever you're about to say is wrong. It doesn't matter. Pick a number. Pick one. Pick one. 21, 18, 25, 15, 12? Which one?
It's changed throughout the times.
No, today, right now. Which one? Which number?
Cake.
No, this fucking drives me crazy. Which number?
All right, wait. Slow down.
Which number? 18?
As a parent, I am legally responsible for my child till what age?
I really don't know.
18.
18 in most states.
Okay. Now, I can emancipate a child at 17.
Yeah.
I'm responsible.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? That's what the government tells me. I have a 39-year-old son. I'm still responsible because I'm
you're a decent human being. Yeah,
because I'm a parent.
Check.
So, and again, we're going straight to opinion. The government has already established that I am responsible up till this point.
That's not true, though. But what point? 18? Is that the number you're talking about?
Yes.
No. State of Tennessee, you can get a kid can get a vaccine at 13 without their parents' permission. Kid can't buy a beer until they're 21, but they're an adult at 18. Like make like that's a whole other square circle bullshit that I don't understand.
Wait. So a 13-year-old walks into a doctor's office, said, "I want X," and the doctor has to do it without and can do it without parental consent.
Vaccine related, yes, in the state of Tennessee.
Vaccine related.
Mm-hmm.
But you said kidney.
Yeah, I thought I heard something
Did I say
like
kidney?
I thought I heard like kidney vaccine.
You said kidney.
Kids can get a vaccine. Kids can get a vaccine at 12 or 13. I don't remember what the exact number is.
The state mandates vaccines for children for certain diseases. That's not a parental decision. That's a government decision. But those are public health issues. We're not talking about public health issues.
But who are we hurting?
What do you mean, who are we hurting? We're not hurting anyone. We're not hurting anyone.
I apologize. I jumped ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I sidetracked on that. That was an apology. Not on the vaccine one. On the trans one. Who are we hurting here?
Who are we hurting?
I jumped ahead.
We're hurting the child.
Maybe.
Okay? The child doesn't... The medical community is already established. I already made this comment. We're hurting the child. They don't have the mental capacity to make that decision. Just like I didn't have the mental capacity to make the decision to get bionics when I was a kid. The same thing applies. And it's got nothing to do with religion. It has nothing to do with medical necessity. A child doesn't have the ability to make that decision.
So if I have a kid that's really into baseball, right? Really good at baseball.
Yes.
Like 10,
sure.
11 years old. Really into baseball.
Yes.
I figure out how to transfer him to schools that are better for him in his baseball potential career. I can play all those games, right? I can chase that down. People do it all the time. Kid just down the street from me, he's a sixth grader, right? Just started middle school.
Aren't they districted for the?
They figured out how to get him districted outside of where he's
breaking the rules.
Okay,
you can put in a request for transfer.
They figured out how to get districted to a different middle school because the baseball program there is better. Fine, they're gaming the system. Right. It's parents' choice, right? Because the kid has an aptitude to a thing.
So you're talking about parental choice for whether I want my kid to go to public school, private school. No, we didn't pass a state law that allows a parent to take their child out of this public school and put them in this public school in the same district.
So high school
we don't have that ability. That's not what school choice does.
No, I'm not talking about school choice. I'm talking about parents' choice.
Okay.
This is parents choosing to work the system that exists to get the result that they want for their kid. And
the parental choice comes in. You need to move into the district that school serves.
Realistically,
that's how that works.
And realistically, this family, who I've met and I've hung out with them, and I know them personally because they're literally my neighbors, is dad's a baseball guy, and both of his sons are baseball kids.
Okay. And
what they do after school is go to baseball camp every fucking day. Dad wants them to be baseball kids.
Okay.
To me, that is as much or more abusive to the child than it is to say, hey, kid, you think you want to be a boy? You really, really think you want to be a boy? Let's have a real conversation about the fact that you were born a girl and this whole mess. That is more abusive than his dad reliving his high school baseball fantasy on his kids twice, for this example, than a parent having a real conversation with their kid that isn't comfortable in their own body to go through some cosmetic bullshit to feel like there's something else. Again, functionally, I don't get it. Functionally, I think it's a bad idea for a minor to do this whole process. But this is something that if we're going to talk about parents' choice and parents abusing their kids by doing something like this, in a trans
it's
kind of thing.
It's a life altering event that cannot be reversed,
and so
the medical repercussions are at this point unknown. So I'll offer you this.
Oh, okay.
I'll offer you this.
Hold on. And so and my neighbor who is so into baseball that his kids are forced into baseball into depths that don't even make sense. What's the math? Like realistically, what's the math of a kid going pro in baseball?
Here, I have a phone.
Itty bitty tiny.
I have a phone.
Itty bitty tiny.
I have a phone. You can call social services if you're worried about those children's welfare.
The amount of effort.
I think the parallel you're drawing is a false one. I just do. My parents could buy me a $6 million man leisure suit. I wore Evel Knievel stripes on my pants that I made myself. We can do those things. You want to be a girl right now? Here's a wig. Wear a skirt. We are not going to undertake life altering and quite frankly life threatening alterations through medication or surgery on minors. We're just not. And it doesn't make sense.
Okay, and I can agree with you that it doesn't make sense. But whereas a party that says less regulation, more personal responsibility, does that square the circle? That's where I'm stuck here. And I apologize for going on my stupid baseball example and all the other shit that I went down here. But whereas you're responsible. You are. You are responsible.
This has nothing to do with party. This is a societal issue. This is not a party issue. This is a societal issue.
Okay.
It's a pretty strong
GOP
talking point.
It's not my GOP talking point. Let's be clear. Again, the county party. You asked the question. The county party hasn't taken a position.
Because this is where I fail.
But I'm going to tell you right now.
He's jumping above from a local GOP member.
Time out, people. We can't all talk over each other at once. Time out. So, who is your state parallel?
Who
is
the official?
Right. Who is the closest thing to what you are to Knox County to the state of Tennessee?
I don't know whether to the state of Tennessee. So who's
the state
counterpart?
Chair?
It would be the state
or the immediate state former
past chair.
I don't give a shit which one. I think the chair of the immediate past. Who's the state chair right now?
Scott Golden.
Okay. Can I get Scott on the show? Can you help me get Scott on the show?
I'll ask him.
You're doing a lot of ask tonight.
Yeah.
Sure. That's what Randy's for. I love Randy. That's why Randy.
And
that's why Randy's great. Because you know what? Randy will do it.
Randy asked. They may say no, but Randy asked.
Have you asked him for anything? Because it's a lot of asking on one side here.
Because remember when we were on the Lamar Alexander train?
He's pocketing these favors.
Do you remember when we were on the Lamar Alexander train? Trying to get Lamar to come on the show, talk about some
right.
I called Randy. I said, Randy, help me out. Right. And he got me in touch with the right people, and it happens that there was some way more important shit than me going on.
He's already doing you a lot of favors.
But I pressed hard.
And you continue asking for more favors.
Sure.
And that's okay.
You're a great friend.
I don't mind. He is a great friend. Hey, it's nice to know people in certain
take it back.
roles.
What do you want back? Come on, give me back.
I don't want anything.
Because what you want is to spread the word. You want people out.
Yeah, I'm here.
You want people to understand.
When he calls me, I get to come over here, and I get to try and convince people to take another step.
He gets to fail to convince me to be on his side.
You know something? I appreciate the passion about personal choice. I really do. And I understand what you're saying about, we all, we need to square some corners, but sometimes corners are not square. Honestly, the issues the issues we face in this country right now are significant, and they are important, and they're important to some people more than others. When we get to the point where we've got to fight with this level of intensity over everything, then nothing gets done. And we start doing it to our own detriment. I think picking a fight with Vanderbilt, and going through all this process was unnecessary. And I think it was created by a very small yet vocal group of people in this country that somehow convinced us it's okay. Everything's okay, and everything is not okay. And it hurts society when you convince people everything's okay. People start killing other people and justifying it and saying it's okay that I did that. There are some lines I'm not going to cross, and when I'm dead and gone, there are stuff my kids talk about, and I'm like, yeah, no. My daughter comes home with the other day, 27 years old, new tattoo. My wife gave her, a bunch of it. And I'm like, she's 27 years old. I'm not having that conversation with her. She knows how I feel about tattoos. I served in the Navy. I don't have any tattoos. My grandmother told me, born in 1898, you come home with, if you get one, don't come home. Well, I would never tell my daughter that. Why would I tell my daughter that? But that's what things change, and I understand they changed. But that tattoo is her personal choice. I don't think it's a great one, but that works for me. When you start doing things that people don't have a choice in, and I'm not in favor of abortion. I don't make that secret, but there are people that are vehemently, they believe it's perfectly okay and they should have it on demand no matter what. I'm sorry, I just don't agree with that. You're taking the life of an unborn child, but it's still a life. I can't reconcile it. But that doesn't mean it applies to everyone. We collectively as a society make these decisions. And we have to abide by the decisions that all of us make because we agreed that's the societal norm. Right. That's the process.
Because I think
when you violate that process, then we start to break down and
right. And to wrap it up all neatly in a bow, I think the reality...
I don't want to put it in a neat bow. I want to continue to argue the point.
But I think the reality is that you've got to be involved in the game. You have to get into the game.
Yeah.
You have to be part of this thing that's going on. You can't just jump in when it's important and when it's something that you care about. You have to be involved, period. You have to be part of creating the social contract and then go with what you created and then adjust and adjust and adjust. And anymore, it's a lack of involvement and bitching.
Yeah.
That to me is the simple breakdown here. It's like, okay, this sucks. Sure, great. What did you do? What did you do? What did you do to be a part of making this suck less? What did you do to fight against the suck?
It's easier to piss you off.
Play the game.
And make you as miserable as me than it is to fix it.
Right. Play the game. Get involved. Do what you have to do to be a part of the thing that's going on. And then you can bitch about it. And then you can be part of changing it and adjusting it and doing the things. But just not being involved and being mad about a particular thing because this is a thing that cares to you. No, I'm as guilty. I am the most guilty of it as possible. It didn't matter to me until it fucking hit me in the face, and now I'm here, and I'm out here trying to get more people to try to come down to get into it before it has to hit you in the face, and I think that's the problem. The problem is that you've got to get into it, and that's to me. Sam, give me some news of the weird so we can get out of here.
Gotcha. Don't have a Florida man.
Florida man, some sort of story. Sam's news of the weird. Here we go. Closing it out.
Georgia man.
Stuck around 3 hours.
Holy crap, has it been 3 hours?
Yeah, that's what we do.
The smoke was coming from inside the fire station. Firefighters in suburban Atlanta returned from a call Sunday to find their own breakfast was in flames. Reports that a city hall and fire crew accidentally left the stove on when they left the station to respond to a house fire on Sunday morning.
That's rough.
Yeah.
That's rough.
Oops.
Like they actually had to put it out?
Other firefighters returned to the Flowery Branch station to find smoke and a small fire. Fire officials said the fire suppression system put out the blaze while firefighters tried to grab a fire extinguisher. The stove was lightly damaged while no one was injured.
Well, there we go. Good news.
Georgia man. Or Georgia men.
Georgia-ish thing. Holy shit. Goddamn. I don't even know what to say right now. Like I'm trying to put together my thoughts on what we just did. Rennie Pace came in and we blew some brains. That's what we do.
I'm rough, aren't I?
No, you're great. I love having you here. It's fantastic. Almost Agreement at gmail.com. We are on Facebook. We are on Twitter. We're on YouTube. Check out the website, almostagreement.com. I'm working on building the election guide 23 so that you can see all 6 races that are going on in there. We'll get names and faces and all that kind of shit built in as we go, and I'll talk to those people when I can. Go to your favorite podcast provider. Check us out there. Give us a like, share, friend, follow, all those things. Tell your friends about us. We're going to keep doing what we're doing. I don't know. That's what we got. Thanks, everybody.
Commercial after commercial on YouTube, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? Where did this come from? Like, why am I seeing this?